The heroine resigned herself, looking around the luxurious room. Expensive shoes and knee-highs covered her bloodied legs. It was even a pity that it would end today. For the first time, her hair was soft and clean, but she couldn't pretend that anything was wrong. A grateful look, a happy expression. She must portray all this in front of the camera in the hope that she will not be thrown out afterwards. The girl sighed resignedly. This wasn't the worst thing they had forced her to do. She could handle it. The orphan put on a forced smile for the camera and batted her eyelashes innocently. The warden looked satisfied, which meant that Davina could even count on dinner today. "Calm down, Davina," she encouraged herself. "This is just another freak using orphans. It will all be over soon." What happened? It suddenly sounded right above the girl. The little one must be scared. And the nasty guy whispered to the warden that she had done a great job. The girl was perfect. Davina's cheeks were already cramping from the forced smile. "Be patient, strong woman." She stopped herself immediately. Now the adults will play with her on camera, and she will return to her dirty and damp corner. And if we go back to the beginning, the reason for her torture was most likely that damn novella. She wandered here and there, enjoying the views and thinking, could she really have ended up abroad? "I'll kill you." Suddenly a voice was heard behind her, and then some old woman's nails dug into her hand, and she completely lost her fear. "Why isn't Davina at work? The ungrateful brat?" the stranger continued to yell. And the next minute, Davina already had a mop and a bucket in her hands. What the hell? And then the realization hit her. Davina is the name of the main character in that story. A typical story about a modern girl who finds herself in the body of an orphan in a novel, and the plot also begins with an orphanage. Or rather, from a conveyor belt where children of low birth were sent in case something happened to the heirs of noble families. It was strange. She only skimmed the beginning of the novella. The details were so detailed in this dream. Never mind the old hag. The girl threw away the mop and bucket, who cleans in their sleep anyway. An icy shiver ran through her body, because after sleep, a terrible reality inevitably awaited her. She wished she never woke up. "How the hell am I supposed to get out of here?" was heard in the room the very next day. She actually lived the life of the novel's main character, and it was hardly safer than her real life. Davina was also a bullied orphan, thrown into life after the orphanage without any support. She was 21 and had no future. She was just trying to survive. But now Arana is in the world of the novel, and she couldn't have dreamed of a more perfect escape from reality. And she promised to enjoy all the local freebies, thanking the heavens for her golden ticket. But then her legs gave way again, and to reach a happy ending, she would have to survive an assassination attempt by a serial killer. And before that terrible night, the heroine faces years of persecution, beatings, and starvation. So Davina was adopted as soon as another person entered this body. And to put it bluntly, her adoptive parents were vile people. The heroine, on the contrary, was pure and innocent, ideal cannon fodder. By the way, when the crown prince appeared in her life, the queen also joined the ranks of tormentors. And the prince's half-brother will become the very psychopath who stabbed the poor thing. What kind of life is this? Later, she herself will become queen and go into politics, and for Arana, all this is definitely too much. That's when she decided that running away before she was adopted was a good option. And since the girl knew the plot, earning money was not a problem for her. All she had to do was take a step and slip away from the old woman while she wasn't looking. Worthless brat came from behind Davina, who was allowing her to cool off. It was worth understanding back then that there would be no benefit from a rootless parasite. "This can't go on any longer," the warden roared. The girl's insides sank. If she continued, the woman would sell her. "Get ready to go to Mr. Garmel's farm," the hag added finally. That nasty guy who licked his lips every time he saw Davina at the market, damn. The old woman herself was aware of his quirks and was planning to hand the girl over to the clutches of this maniac. "I, in your opinion, am a beast that can be gotten rid of at any moment." Davin clenched his fists. And she moved towards the warden. "The damned hag is going after her death out of turn." She wished she could say so, but she threw herself at the old witch's feet, begging her to have mercy. "What are you doing?" The woman started waving her leg, trying to throw Davina off. But the girl clung even tighter, vowing to put in twice as much effort. And here she is, an orphan from a poster, who is used to collect donations that flow into the pocket of an old woman. And the spoiled rich people, to wash away their reputation. What a sweet little girl, a man approached. And what does she dream about? Davina immediately tore off a piece of chalk from a piece of pizza and wrote out, "Is to become a large landowner." The girl cleared her throat, meaning to become an artist, and the mustachioed man was clearly satisfied with the answer. What luck, this uncle knows how to make wishes come true. A clawed hand lay on the girl's shoulder. The warden is so grateful to him it's not worth it. The mustachioed man waved it off. It gives him pleasure. The old woman is confident that everyone will soon forget about these ridiculous rumors. This is not the first time she has helped in this matter. And the next morning all the newspapers were full of articles about the miracle that happened to the poor orphan. She and her friends from the shelter will be able to make their dreams come true, all thanks to the Baron's generous funding. What bastards! Davina grabbed the newspaper. They made a philanthropist out of immoral trash. A bag of money, and this nasty guy became everyone's hero. Nothing changes. Making dreams come true is nonsense. The girl scraped off mold and grease with her nails because the hag forbade wasting water, while she herself was filling her pockets with coins and spending them on all sorts of expensive junk. And instead of the promised dinner after the shoot, the girl was left with scraps. The old hag must be gotten rid of at any cost. The heroine crumpled the newspaper. No matter how, but Davina will no longer be a slave. "Come here quickly, you little brat," came from behind her. "Yes, ma'am, I'm on my way," the heroine chirped and obediently trudged out into the street. The capital's main shopping street, where crowds of people flicker by. How Davina hated it. After all, danger was waiting for her behind every colorful counter, and she needed to get out of here as quickly as possible. Buying carrots and celery and then going to the tailor's shop. Why is it such an easy job? Maybe I should just take the opportunity and run away while the hag is not around. The girl walked down the street, not noticing how she was surrounded by a crowd of people. "Hey, look!" Suddenly came the voice from the crowd, the same ragamuffin from the newspaper. "Poor orphan. It's hard for her without her parents," the vile offspring shouted and threw a piece of dirt at Davina. And their mother just giggled at the antics of her offspring. "I hate it," the heroine bit her lip. This one is somehow dirty and unsightly, but it's definitely the same girl from the article. That's why the old hag sent Davina to the market. Damn black PR. After this noise, the old woman will be able to extract money from the Baron in order to supposedly support his legend. "So you love to draw," the boy hissed, "but isn't that too much of a luxurious hobby for a shameful orphan?" They heard that the disabled children from the shelter were given a lot of money, and that then the clothes were dirty. "Arana stinks," her classmate squealed. The second girl noticed it too. They are the same everywhere. And the best thing the girl could do was ignore them. A sharp stone flew at her head, and Davina immediately felt pain in the back of her head. These degenerates. She clenched her fists, and the vultures were just waiting for her reaction. Overcoming herself, the heroine nevertheless turned away and walked away. "How dare you ignore us?" the guy shouted. "Throw this at her. Let her know her place," came from behind Davina. "A bunch of embittered degenerates," she threw out. "What's their problem?" But it was too late. A huge pile of stinking garbage was already inevitably flying towards the poor thing. The girl put her hands out in front of her, naively believing that this would protect her from the stinking avalanche. And it seemed to work. Davina opened her eyes. Nothing had happened. Someone's back blocked her view, and to be honest, she had no idea who it was. Unfortunately, having parents is no guarantee of upbringing, the savior said in a steely voice. Davina looked at the boy warily. He had a noble appearance, and his deed was good. Cold sweat was running down her face. Wasn't she safe now? For some reason, she suddenly felt so anxious, and a disgusting lump formed in her stomach. And it seemed that those brats also sensed something and began to back away. And then Davina began to choke with fear. Her throat was tight and her lungs were burning. Suddenly, a sharp, unbearable pain pierced her right side. What the hell? The girl ran her hand over the place but found nothing. What kind of strange feeling was this? While Davina was losing consciousness in the background, the stranger was serenely adjusting his hair. "These brats still haven't run away?" The brat took out a knife and shouted, but his voice trembled treacherously. "Who is this guy?" Even if he knew who he was, what would change? The stranger growled, baring his teeth. At this point, the scoundrels huddled together and prepared to attack. How dare some stranger interfere in their affairs? The blade of a knife flashed in the teenager's trembling hand, while the stranger, on the contrary, was frighteningly calm and cold-blooded. And then the degenerate rushed at him with a knife, but the brunette dodged with the same serenity. Then he grabbed the attacker's wrist with one hand and knocked the knife out. "I can't watch," Davina screamed and closed her eyes, just so the brunette would win. And then the stranger casually threw a knife at the brat, as if he had gone to buy bread. He said it quietly, but his voice alone was enough to make them jump up and run away. "Was he raised by ninjas or something? We'll tell Mom everything," they shouted as they left. Davina tried to squeeze out words of gratitude, stumbling over every word. either because the stranger turned out to be indecently handsome or because he never stopped creeping her out. "What are you standing there for?" the stone-faced guy suddenly asked her. "He can't even stand up for himself. It's shameful." Davina's jaw dropped. "Next time, don't hide behind others' backs and accept the challenge with dignity," the brunette added. And then the stranger also suddenly disappeared into the crowd of noisy streets. It's easy for a smart guy to say, "Look how he throws knives," Davina thought. What was that all about? Night fell quickly, but Davina continued to think about him. Disgusting. The guy gave her a strange feeling, and one thing was clear. She needed to stay away from him. Besides, she didn't remember such a passage in the novel at all. He was probably a minor passerby. However, his aura was comparable to the main characters, and goosebumps ran down the heroine's skin again. And even that, and the indifference with which he handled the knife, gives rise to a number of suspicions. The countdown will soon begin. They will come for the girl, and her whole life will once again become a marathon for survival. And even though Davina knew that a happy ending awaited her in the end, she was scared. The heroine jumped out of bed. She needed to pull herself together and not waste the opportunity. She was given a chance in heaven and told, "Go ahead, girl." Davina clenched her fist belligerently. She will join that rotten family and get their benefits, and then she will marry the crown prince. And then she'll be in chocolate. Time to get started with her plan. From now on, Davina will become the ambassador of the aristocracy. And naturally, it later turned out that the good fortune that was sent down turned out to be an ordinary temptation. A few days later, a familiar scream was heard in the shelter. Let the little brat do everything right, otherwise the warden will sell her for pennies to the first person she meets. "Listen carefully," the warden hissed and grabbed the girl's forearm. "The woman won't repeat herself. The girl has to be a good girl today. The little parasite knows what will happen to her if she lets down the warden, doesn't she?" The heroine swallowed. The old hag would sell her to that psycho's farm. Today the old woman is especially nervous, and in general there were good reasons for this. Because very soon the queen herself will honor the shelter with her visit. The girl obediently bowed in reverence. It was a great honor for her to meet Her Majesty. A lie. "What a beauty," the queen chirped, smiling venomously. And then she leaned over to the orphan and stroked her hair. Davina immediately tensed up. After all, only she knew that this woman, without hesitation, poisoned her own child for money and power. To everyone else, Queen Joanna was known for her stinginess with herself, but her generosity to others. But behind the mask of virtue lurked a truly ruthless, rotten essence. And in the end, condemning her own son to torment, this person remained close to the crown prince. And the unsuspecting poor fellow accepted her as a mother. And it is because of this woman that the serial killer will make the crown prince and Davina his targets. Harez Alain von Arselt, who was so moved by the newspaper article that he personally came to see Davina. The heroine looked the handsome heir over from head to toe. He seemed like a nice guy. And as if sensing a gaze on himself, the crown prince responded to Davina in kind. And then he smiled. Damn, the heroine bit her lip, a fatal mistake. Hearts appeared in her eyes, and her face and ears were hot like lava. How gloomy. The girl clasped her face with her hands. Could it really be because of the plot of the novel? Seriously, she fell head over heels in love from the first second. The girl slapped herself on the cheeks. Pull yourself together, wimp. Without giving in to plot twists, Davina must set this handsome man up with her half-sister to survive. In general, now a feeling arose that she had already felt before. Then a sharp pain shot through my ribs and the feeling disappeared. No, Davina shook her head angrily. It had just seemed that way to her then. The girl beat herself in the chest belligerently. You can do it, Davina, and then heard giggling behind her. It turned out that the heir to the throne was laughing at her. Why was he laughing at her? It seems that the heroine won't even have to do anything to attract the attention of such an important person. You need to throw all this romance out of your head and focus on the main thing, her rich future. Forgive me for laughing. The crown prince suddenly addressed the orphan. Davina, right? Asked the prince in a velvety voice. He read about her in the newspaper. So she dreams of becoming an artist. Davina swallowed nervously. The blonde immediately started asking about her supposed dream. Nasty stuff. Now it will begin. Who is her favorite artist? What is her favorite style of drawing? We urgently need to divert the prince's attention. Davina came close to him and whispered, I want to share something. Seeing herself in the mirror, she noticed that her hair was quite light, and His Majesty knew why. The girl raised her index finger like a scientist because Davina was blonde. The heir to the throne's jaw dropped. Damn, the heroine bit her lip. You can't laugh. the blushing girl whispered and looked away from the target. Otherwise, she would be accused of insulting a royal person. Cold sweat was already dripping down her face. The Crown Prince, on the other hand, began to think seriously about a new color theory. What? The girl stared at the air in bewilderment. Stop thinking about nonsense. And His Highness had breakfast this morning, the girl blurted out impatiently. Davina was eating some soup with bread. She absolutely loves to eat. The warden said that the girl eats like 3 men, but she calls it talent. And she added in conclusion that if she and the Crown Prince had a competition, she would have crushed him. And the future ruler just looked at Davina without making a sound. It seemed she had gone too far. The heroine swallowed nervously. In this dimension, children are not executed, right? Damn, why is she so carried away? He's just a typical rich heir. The girl began to look around for escape routes. It seemed she could jump out the window. And the emerald eyes continued to drill into her. Damn, she's finished. Then a loud laugh rang out. Davina's manner of speaking was so funny. The Crown Prince could hardly contain his laughter. The heroine froze. It seemed she had escaped without a trace. It's easy as pie to capture the attention of the guy with whom Roman is already trying to connect. The heroine irritably moved a rag across the window. What a weirdo. The poor fellow was happy with everything that was said. It is not surprising that the evil one, Joanna, chose him as her target. And he behaved so freely, as if they were there alone. The first encounter with hares went smoothly. If everything continues like this, then Davina will be in chocolate. It's just like in the novella. An orphan, struck by the prince's kindness, immediately falls in love with him. In any case, the girl managed to arouse interest in herself. Everything went according to plan. However, the closer she got to her goal, the more scared she was. But there was no way out. Davina clutched the dirty rag. The mechanism was set in motion, and now she would always be in danger. A photo of her and the Crown Prince smiling at each other was published in a daily newspaper, meaning an antagonist will soon emerge. A motionless figure stood in the darkness, sir, a voice behind him said warily. Close the door behind you, my lord said in a steely voice, and the butler swallowed nervously. His master feverishly tapped his fingers on a fresh newspaper and added, Prepare the carriage. And looking at the girl's photograph, he whispered, How long have I been looking for you? There were several days in the heroine's life when she received attention from the caregivers at the orphanage, and when they noticed her, she already knew that perhaps today she would have parents. Then she desperately tried to convince everyone that she would become a good member of the family. And of course, the girl was never chosen, and every refusal went straight into her heart like a sharp blade. Each time she blamed herself more and more, considering herself the most worthless person in the world. But today, whether her parents want it or not, the heroine will have a family. Was Davina happy? No, she knew that her family would become her torture chamber. But there is no other way out. The girl must go through and endure everything to find her happily ever after. Family, Davina whispered, as if tasting the word. She shouldn't be so sentimental. Think about being used and abandoned again, the heroine reminded herself and clenched her fists. Davina slapped herself on the cheeks. While she has the opportunity, she needs to dig up dirt on this guy. And then she will run away with his goods and open her own business, just as she dreamed. And he will enter into a contract marriage with some rich cutie. Having left the nasty guy with nothing, Davina is here for a better future. So she just needs to keep a low profile and give the crown prince to that heiress. Come in already, the old hag said in a steely voice, as if sensing her appearance at the door. Why are you standing there? Say hello quickly, you little brat, the warden hissed at her. A shiver ran down the girl's spine, wondering if she could withstand everything he had in store for her. Damn Fard Vis. It was he who helped the evil queen from the Vis family ascend to the throne. But he quickly realized that she was using him, and in order to strengthen the power of the Vis, there was only one option, to establish contact with the crown prince. But the Duke had only one daughter, and she was obliged to inherit his title. That's when he needed another girl who would become expendable in the political arena. So Duke Vis came out to Davina, glad to greet his lordship, she whispered. However, he did not answer her, and she is smart, he only asked the warden coldly. And the old hag assured him that the girl was smart and very resilient. For this guy, Davina is dust, her face twisted with anger. No way. The heroine squeezed between the adults and yelled another greeting right in his face. And then, with the most innocent look, she blinked her eyelashes. Having such a family was her dream. Davina heard that my lord had a daughter. The man immediately tensed up. That's right, the Vis family has one heiress, he stated in an icy tone, watching her reaction. Davina smiled, confident that they would make each other's lives better. The girl also prepared a gift for Duke Whis, a ribbon that the crown prince had recently given her. Of course, Davina didn't expect the Duke to wear it, so she wanted to give it to the Duchess. "The crown prince, you say?" the Duke hissed, as if noting something for himself. This was the best thing the orphan had, the Duke grinned. Why give the best to someone else? Davina paused dramatically, sharing what's most precious with those you value most. And it was the pure truth. In her favorite fairy tale, the bear cub lived happily with his mom and dad, and they shared everything. The girl hugged a tattered book she had dreamed of a family all her life. Davina blinked her eyelashes. If the Duke accepted her, she would never be greedy. There was a glimmer in his eyes, wondering if she could keep her promise. The girl shouldn't be greedy because Duke Whis will provide her with everything she needs, and even more. And then he extended his hand to the heroine. If Davina is not greedy, then she will not have any problems. She just needed to be obedient and grateful, and the warden, unable to bear it any longer, pushed the little girl closer to the Duke. A predatory smile appeared on the heroine's face, and the game began. Davina realizes how undeserved this thing is for her, so she hands it over to her master. And of course, this is not something that is given away voluntarily. The girl put on her most innocent smile. The uncle should count that for her. A keen gaze peered into Davina's face for a long time. Noting something for itself, she was quite cunning for her age. "That's what it takes," Duke Whis suddenly said, relaxing his shoulders. "It's strange. The Duke found excellent material on the first try. Prudence is valued in the House of Whis." "Thank you for appreciating me," the heroine immediately chirped, but the hag's iron claws dug into her shoulder. "Damn," the girl grimaced. "It hurts so much," but the Duke continued. "It's better to be calculating than stupid. It's wonderful that the children at the orphanage are receiving proper guidance." The old woman immediately beamed. "What is this guy talking about? They treat cattle better than this old woman treats Davina. Of course, the girl is like a daughter whom she raised with love." The hag babbled and clenched her claws tighter. "Well, that's it," the heroine decided to herself. "Now the old woman is no longer needed." "Director, why are you hurting me again?" Davina squealed, her previous abrasions not even having healed yet. "What are you talking about, child?" the warden immediately chirped. The woman immediately bowed apologetically. She was so ashamed. The girl sometimes lied like that, no matter how much she tried to teach her not to. A heavy hand grabbed Davina's hair and pressed her head down, suppressing the rebellion. What a beast. And no wonder, in this damn place everyone uses childhood fear as leverage. Finally, Davina simply has to give the old hag a good hard time. The girl was guilty. She must have imagined it, because the director always took such care of her. And he also spoils Davina even though she doesn't deserve it. Could their relationship really be that good? The Duke doubted. "Of course," the heroine chirped. Her aunt gave her a wonderful corner in an abandoned attic. And even though it was very drafty there at times, and Davina almost froze to death, like the little match girl. Not everyone is lucky enough to get a personal corner and experience the role of the unfortunate heroine with matches. And the straw instead of a blanket made her immerse herself in fantasies where she was a knight seeking refuge in a barn. On Thursdays, she also got especially tasty leftovers. The Duke roared rather sharply. "The shelter has so many generous donations, it's even curious where all those contributions went." "Another snake pit," the man hissed. "Expect me to return soon," the Duke added in a steely voice, "and this meeting will be the old woman's last. It's time to go. Let the butler take care of the paperwork. The Duke has chosen that girl over there." "Bite me, old hag," the heroine whispered and stuck out her tongue. "The evil one will finally get what he deserves." And then a shiver ran down the girl's spine. The Duke stood right above her, and it seemed he saw everything. "There is a carriage downstairs. Bring your things," he said crisply. "The adults will decide the rest of the issues." Davina didn't need to be asked twice. She immediately rushed out of the room. Goodbye to her poor life. And the adoptive father watched her carefully. It seemed that his plan would be realized much faster. "It's crazy." It resounded throughout the entire Duchy of Whis. "Are these gates made of gold or something? This guy is indecently rich even for a novel, and how did he make such a fortune?" The girl's jaw dropped, and the face of the head of the duchy changed dramatically. And where was Catherine? The butler stammered that her grace was unwell. The Duchess had a migraine again, and young Mrs. Isabella is now looking after her, the servant added fearfully. "It's begun," the heroine thought to herself. The Duchess and their daughter Davina were the ones who got it the most. Catherine and Isabella were furious after the adoption of the orphan, which slowly caused a rift in the family. And Fard Vis, without asking anyone, did everything in defiance and brought Davina into the house. As a result, she was beaten, starved, and even poisoned by the maids. Quite a new life. "Be strong, strong woman, you can handle it," Davina whispered belligerently. "Go ahead," a cold voice suddenly said. "The butler will show the girl her room." Entering the Wiss estate, it seemed that everything here was made of gold. "Take her away," the owner ordered in a steel voice. "As you command," the butler bowed nervously, and his master hurried away down the corridor. And surely in that direction were the chambers of Catherine Wiss. The girl's legs began to shake treacherously. "Miss?" the servant repeated for the third time. And then the butler's hand slowly opened the door. "Your bedroom, little mistress." The girl's eyes immediately widened. She stepped back and whispered, "No." The butler stopped, realizing that the heroine was not following him. The young Miss's room was right in front of them. Where was she going? "That's not true," Davina said, and Sir William immediately turned to look at her in fear. The girl's cheeks stung with salty tears, and she kept repeating, "No, no, no." Cold sweat immediately poured down the poor guy's face, wondering what had happened. The heroine bashfully covered her tear-stained face and wiped away her tears with her sleeve. She was fine. "It was just too perfect to be true," she sobbed. A dark, damp room with mold and a huge heating bill is her reality. The days when she shared her home with cockroaches and rats, shuddering every night from someone's touch. Farewell, hungry and terrible past. She will remain in luxury and wealth forever. The head of the estate immediately came running to the heart-rending sobs, asking what the hell was going on here. The butler immediately swallowed nervously. The girl suddenly began to cry. He had nothing to do with it. Sir William didn't know why she was crying. Davina wiped her nose with her sleeve and declared that her uncle had nothing to do with it. The Duke was immediately puzzled. It meant the girl didn't like her new quarters, but surely there would be at least something to her taste in the estate. Hearing this, Davina started crying again. Everything was wrong. She was just too happy. "The bed is so huge," the girl jumped up and down, "and now she even has her own carpet. And how did this guy make such a fortune? Although on the other hand, what difference does it make?" Davina ran up to the Duke and grabbed his hand. Whether he was being evil or not, she was so grateful to him. The girl continued to shake his hand, sniffling. She was forever indebted to her uncle. The Duke stood dumbfounded, staring at the child choking on tears and snot. It was strange. And then he suddenly turned away, barely holding back his laughter. And by the way, the butler did exactly the same. Davina tilted her head questioningly, asking why they were laughing. "I don't care." The heroine immediately waved them off, because now everything is perfect for her. The girl quickly wrapped herself in the new blanket. It was amazing, as if she were in a fluffy cloud. Tears began to flow from her swollen eyes again. Davina had hit the jackpot. The girl folded her hands in front of her. For a room like this, she would fulfill any of the Duke's whims. The heroine even intended to be friendly with his wife and daughter. In the morning, she woke up as a rich young lady, and for the first time she slept so sweetly. "I need to quickly wash that pretty face that has provided me with such a luxurious life." Someone even made sure that the water for washing was cold. It was so invigorating. Davina hurried to get dressed, as she was eager to fill her belly with the rich people's exquisite dishes. Suddenly, hurried footsteps were heard right outside her bedroom door, but no one entered. "How strange," the heroine thought to herself and shouted loudly, "Come in." However, it didn't work. Davina looked questioningly at the door. So what was that? Then the girl decided to take a look and quietly opened the door to see who was there. Some maid was quickly moving away down the corridor, but why was she in such a hurry? "I'm already awake and ready to receive guests," Davina announced joyfully, and she almost fainted. Cold sweat was running down the maid's face, but there was no sound in the bedroom, she said nervously. Davina was used to waking up early, but the maid's fingers were red. It seemed the water she was carrying was icy. Wait a minute. The realization of what happened immediately hit me in the head. What a viper. On her first day at the mansion, a group of maids bullied Davina and forced her to wash her face with ice-cold water. After all, the nobles preferred warm clothes, and of course, Isabella's maids were the ones who mocked the heroine the most. However, according to the plot, the main character was like a tank and immediately walked over the scoundrel, publicly humiliating her. Well, her habits from a poor life did not even allow their conflict to begin. The maid pushed the basin towards the girl. Time to wash up and get ready for the day. Davina doesn't think so. She had already managed to wash herself with the remains of yesterday's water, but it was so heavy for the maid to carry this bowl here. It's clear this bastard tried to force the orphan to wash himself with ice water. The aunt left her no choice. The grand scandal mode was activated. This water was an iceberg just a minute ago. Was the maid really going to torture her with ice water? Even at the shelter, they gave out heated water. It looks like the Duke is saving on firewood. Everything is wrong. The culprit immediately retreated. This is probably because the miss wears light clothes, and after breakfast the maid will bring her warm dresses. She will ask Madame Isabella for the dresses she no longer wears, the heiress's worn dresses. That's a jackpot. And the aunt had better not disappoint Davina again, otherwise she will receive a fatal bite. Wait a minute, breakfast is already ready. The girl swallowed nervously. Well, of course, Mr. Fard has been waiting for her for a long time. Davina knew it. This girl deliberately made her late. Now it is clear why there was no knock, and her steps moved so quickly away from the girl's bedroom door. This woman is from the very bottom and believes that this is the only way to win the master's favor. It turns out that feeling envious towards yourself is so pleasant. The heroine would prefer to get even with her gracefully, but the big shot won't like any extra noise in his house. So Davina will just do little by little mischief to her. She grabbed the maid's skirt and squealed, "Auntie, quickly take me to the Duke." The head of the estate was really tired of waiting for the little miss. The girl bowed guiltily in a curtsy, wondering if his lordship had slept well. The Duke invited her to the table. Davina's preparations took a long time. She was unaccustomed to accepting help. The heroine looked around the dining hall, which meant that they would be the only ones at the table. The Duke nodded. It was clear that the rest of the family did not want to see her, but who cared? After all, it means that all these wonderful dishes are only for Davina, and they plan to serve such a breakfast every day. Being rich is so cool. Noticing the girl's confusion, the Duke immediately assured her that she need not worry about her manners. It wasn't her fault that she didn't have the opportunity to learn. The heroine nodded dramatically. To put it bluntly, Davina didn't think about manners at all. She couldn't decide what to destroy first. But if a big shot insists, then she won't be shy. The servant's jaws dropped. And when Davina stuffed the whole leg into her mouth, the servants almost fainted. At the shelter, they said that the girl could chew on stones. The Duke's face instantly took on a threatening look, which meant that the woman was forcing the girl to eat pebbles. Not quite, that is, to some extent, the heroine chirped tragically. The old hag would have broken her teeth and spit them out on the concrete pieces of bread, poor little thing, the maids whispered. When prying eyes are on her, Davina is forced to take a break from eating and pretend to be unhappy. We need to have time to enjoy this wonderful food. Greedy chomping could be heard in the hall. Suddenly, the Duke put his spoon down on the table with a loud bang, and the room immediately fell silent. Davina remembers saying she was aware of the older prince's attention, he said. The girl nodded warily. In that case, the young miss should understand who Duke Fard is. The heroine nervously swallowed a large piece of food. She had heard that the only person above Duke Whis was the Emperor himself. He immediately asked who said something like that. The author of the novel is an old man, Davina thought to herself, and with the most serene look stated that she had read about it in a book. The girl can read. It's amazing. Well, she was spying while others were studying. And in the end, Davina had some success, a blatant lie. The local dialect was no different from her native one. That was her secret. And praise be to the unknown novelist, Davina knew everything about everyone here. And does the girl understand why she was adopted? Asked the Duke. Well, of course. Davina had heard that raising a large number of children was a requirement for high nobles. While one inherits the title, the others are used to create connections through marriages. It seems the teachers at the orphanage have very long tongues. Davina said in a steely voice that no one had told her this, but life in the shelter had taught her a lot. Illegitimate children were often kept alive for insurance purposes, and many of the boys who shared her fate in the orphanage actually have rich biological parents. And if something happens to their purebred brothers and sisters, they can return to their family. Otherwise, they will continue to grow up there until they reach adulthood, which is why people like Davina were taught manners. Having lived in different places, she immediately noticed the difference between the Curtis shelter and others. And I immediately understood what was happening within its walls. A deafening silence fell over the refectory. The girl is clearly quite intelligent, but the Duke swears that he is not her father. So Davina understands why they chose her, the Duke repeated once again. The girl clenched her fists. He would suspect something was wrong if she was talking too much. Cold sweat was running down the heroine's face. Perhaps it should be said that this somehow concerns the crown prince. Then the butler announced that the desserts were ready. What a relief, the heroine thought. Everything didn't go according to plan, and for some reason the desserts were delivered earlier than expected. The Duke immediately waved his hand and told the butler to wait until they finished. But it was already too late. The girl's entire attention was absorbed by the cute desserts. Crown Prince, Davina whispered, enchanted. The eldest prince loves cakes and pastries very much. They are so tempting, even the royal big shot cannot resist. Saliva began to flow down the girl's chin. The Crown Prince was definitely a dessert maniac. The men stared at the possessed child in shock and looked at each other. Finally, the girl stopped short. She had just said all this out loud. The Duke immediately cleared his throat. By heir to the throne, the young miss meant herself. That's right. That is to say, no, it's all the prince. He's just obsessed with cakes, the blushing girl blurted out. And the Duke suggested using a napkin, since drool was still dripping down her chin. Damn it, the heroine's cheeks flushed treacherously. How shameful. Uncle probably now considers her a village idiot. Davina clutched the napkin. Damn, the heroine was planning to build a serious reputation here, but everything went to hell. Seeing the girl's confusion, the head of the estate offered her to try the desserts so that he could tell the prince about it later. Surely the dessert maniac would not forgive Davina if she ignored the cake. Well, since my lord insists so, the heroine immediately picked up the spoon. It's worth waiting until the girl relaxes and then explaining her situation, the Duke thought. Perhaps she can live with this villain, Davina beamed. Bring in the cake. A fabulous dessert appeared before the heroine's face, and the aroma of strawberries and cream immediately filled the entire room. Her heartbeat quickened. Davina forgot how to breathe. So this is what being in love is. The Duke continued to tell her something, but the girl did not hear anything. Everything was as if in a fog. And the head of the house lowered his eyes. After all, she was still a child. His lordship said something, smacking her lips loudly, Davina clarified. Let the child eat and not be distracted, the Duke answered impartially. It was too early to tell her everything, Lord Vis decided to himself. She was not ready. Let the girl first get used to this house and come into contact with the toxic high society. The Duke looked at Davina carefully. I hope you won't let us down. This guy was clearly not telling her something, but who cares? He treated her to this gastronomic masterpiece. But what if all these wonderful desserts are a bribe from the villain? Well, the heroine can live with that. Mistress, the same maid roared into Davina's ear for the third time. Was she stunned or something? The girl became a minute closer to death, but the maid brought clothes for Miss. The heroine's expression immediately changed. Now this woman didn't seem so unpleasant. Agnes finished much faster than she expected, but then the girl froze. Her dress was torn, but the maid assured her that it would fit her perfectly. Davina chirped warily. Maybe there would be something else. No. The maid immediately threw at her with disgust. This is all that there is for Davina. Or let Miss wear what she brought from the shelter. Agnes folded her hands in front of her with a victorious look. Well, or let the girl sew her dress herself, as the aunt said. It's as if this dress was used to fight off robbers. Is it even possible to fix something like this? Davina ran her fingers over the beautiful bow, the only thing left of the entire dress. Any lady could have handled this. Agnes snapped venomously. It was worth considering. Maybe the girl shouldn't have come here. Davina hissed through her teeth, "Bring the needle," and the maid's face immediately twisted into a satisfied grimace. And then she shoved the sewing basket into Davina's hand and hurried towards the exit. And let the miss not forget that she has time until dinner. She will go to it in what she will sew herself. This woman behaves like a hyena, either by herself or by the heiress's orders. Even if it was on orders, this woman definitely enjoys poisoning the girl. Davina has no room for error. That wasn't in the novel, and now it's unknown what to expect from this house. The girl has only been here for 1 day, and the guy has already started recruiting her. He lulled her into a false sense of security with a magnificent dessert. A cunning fox, she should be on her guard. The heroine rolled up her sleeves. She wouldn't let anyone take away her golden ticket. It was time to do what she did best. Davina would never go back to poverty again. Divine sewing skills activated, the heroine raised the needle up in a warlike manner. The skill of precise measurements has been launched. These rags will become a masterpiece in her hands. If only I could just shout out some spell or call the fairies for help. However, this world is also comparable to the real one. There was no trace of magic here. Davina finally finished with her notes. However, sewing clothes always came easy to her and paid off handsomely. At one time, the heroine earned a good living by knitting and sewing dresses, but that woman doesn't know who she's dealing with. So in this world, Davina is a jack of all trades, but she's unlucky. Surely, that evil woman in the cap is sure that the girl will show up for dinner looking like a ragamuffin. Today she will give Agnes her first lesson. Davina cut off the hem of her dress in one movement. A tired sigh was heard at the end of the corridor. This girl turned out to be smarter than expected. And as fate would have it, the Duke managed to pull an ace out of the deck of cards on his first try. Although he sometimes behaves like a barbarian, he is not inferior to Isabella in resourcefulness, despite the age difference. "Father," came a sudden cry from behind the Duke, and his face immediately changed. "The orders have been completed," the heiress added coldly, and the head of the family turned to look at her warily. Isabella is his only daughter, unmatched in insight, and usually does not show emotion. But as the next head of the Wyss family, her composure is only an asset. From an early age, teachers assured her that the heiress was a true genius and more than worthy of inheriting the title. "Isn't it because they're putting too much pressure on their daughter?" Catherine hissed, and a cold sweat ran down the teacher's face. "No," the Duke told her in a steely voice, "Bella must meet the demands of the successor." Naturally, the heiress confirmed with the same composure. "This girl is destined to lead the Wyss family and expand its influence, and she will succeed." Or rather, that was the plan until one day Isabella said, "Dad, I want to marry the eldest prince." "Nonsense!" The father punched him angrily. How could he allow his smart girl to give up her roots and become part of another family? The Duke knew his girl well and understood that someone was manipulating her. Even if his daughter's love for hares is genuine, Bella is not one to let feelings get the better of her mind. Her nasty voice echoed in his head she would be glad to see Isabella as her bride. "Damn it!" Steel flashed in the Duke's eyes. Joanna was to blame for what happened. The vile girl forgot who helped her ascend to the royal throne and dared to manipulate her daughter from behind the scenes. This can't be allowed to continue, but changing Isabella's mind won't happen right away. This is the reason why the head of the duchy brought Davina here, who will easily win the heart of the young prince, and then Joanna will be unable to do anything. "Derek!" the Duke roared at once. The butler immediately appeared in the doorway. "Whatever pleases his lordship." "Let Derek ask Isabella to go shopping with Davina." The butler's face twisted nervously. "Excuse me," he said cautiously. "My lord wants his daughter to handle this personally." This case would be more suitable for Catherine, but his wife refuses to see both him and the girl. "The fact that the girls are the same age will help them choose suitable clothes," the Duke added. "It will be done." The butler bowed and immediately hurried to the exit. "Catherine," the Duke said again, left alone with himself, his cheeks immediately flushing. Of course, the wife was categorically against an orphan from the shelter in their house. And when her husband brought the girl into the house without her consent, to put it bluntly, Catherine was furious. The Duchess screamed that she hated the scoundrel, that he only thought about himself and didn't give a damn about her and her daughter. The head of the duchy clenched his fists and whispered, "They left him no choice." Pieces of dress flew mercilessly to the floor, and finally Davina threw the scissors away from herself. When she manages to get out of here, she will definitely open her own dressmaking business. It's time to show this luxury to the world, and at the same time inspect the new home. The Wyss estate was more like a palace. Well, Davina would get used to it. However, the heroine constantly felt someone's gaze behind her back. Damn, all the maids in the estate couldn't take their eyes off her, and a shiver ran down the heroine's spine. And as soon as the girl passed by, a poisonous whisper immediately began to echo behind her. It's understandable. Some orphan was walking around in a luxurious dress on the estate of the second person in the empire. Poor Fard, Davina thought to herself. He was in a difficult situation now. Trying to calm my wife and daughter and not forgetting about the new baby at the same time is quite a challenge. Dirty, worn-out shoes stepped onto the honorable path of glory of the Wyss family. From each portrait, someone powerful and dangerous looked at her, and for some reason Davina felt uneasy. Suddenly the girl froze in front of one of the portraits and gasped. This must be a portrait of the former head of the Wyss family, but he doesn't look like Fard at all. What was strange was that the heroine immediately dismissed these thoughts. She couldn't get involved in anything. But then the girl's attention was drawn to a family photo album, or rather, to one strange detail. The photographs only showed Catherine and Fard, and a few others whom the heroine could not recognize. And to put it bluntly, Catherine was a stunning goddess. That damn writer clearly overdid it. Even on the pages of a novel, it's illegal to be so beautiful. Davina is the main character here, isn't she? It shouldn't be like this, the girl whispered, turning the next page of the album. The next photo looked strange, or rather, one particular detail. Davina ran her fingers over the photo. And just as the heroine was about to pull out the photo to take a closer look at it, she heard from behind her, "There you are, you bastard." Davina immediately turned around in fear. That was what they only called her at the shelter. Tenacious fingers wrapped around her wrist in a flash and squeezed tightly. The little brat couldn't get away. "Petty thief!" the maid roared. "How dare this ragamuffin steal the young mistress's dress?" Davina stared at the screaming maid with a stony face. What was this woman talking about? The girl changed her dress while sewing. What is her problem? It's a lie. The maid didn't give the freeloader such an elegant dress. On the contrary, the maid found the most worn and dirty clothes for this wretch. What a dumbass. She just went and spilled it all herself, and realizing this, Agnes immediately stopped short. This is not the point, the maid immediately snapped, but Davina was slowly moving towards her, and this was precisely the point. So there were other dresses. Agnes's face immediately turned purple. Everything was completely different. Davina's grin spreads predatory. She's already starting to believe her. And then, with the most serene look, she extended her hand to her, the girl ready to listen to Agnes. What is this little brat talking about? Agnes roughly pulled her hands back. No way. Davina clenched her fists. Agnes will succeed. Let her confess her sins, and she will feel better. The maid was furious. How impudent! It didn't change the fact that the scoundrel stole the young mistress's dress. Davina rolled her eyes, which meant the nasty woman continued to say so, although the girl was wearing the same dress that Agnes had given her herself. And if the maid thought he was so stylish, it means that in addition to beauty, Davina is also talented. Agnes roared with rage and dragged the poor thing down the corridor, the vile mudblood. "Let's see if you'll behave like this in front of Madame Isabella," the maid hissed. And the next minute, an insistent knock was heard in the heiress's private chambers. "Madam, it's Agnes." Now the nasty girl will start talking vividly. The maid pulled Davina into the room. A stern voice came from the room. "Let Agnes come in." Davina looked at her with a stony gaze. Here she is. The maid began to drag the girl inside by force, and when she went, she met resistance. The little girl tried furiously to pull her wrist out of her steel grip, and it worked. It's time to teach the evil aunt a lesson. Something flashed in Davina's eyes. And then a dramatic cry rang out throughout the entire estate, asking why this woman was beating her. Afterwards, Davina flew into the wall, hit the table, and tumbled down the corridor. And she fell right at the feet of Isabella's maids. "What the hell is Agnes doing?" was immediately heard in the room. Davina put on her most miserable look. Agnes swallowed nervously, but she only pushed her lightly. The girl began to pretend to have convulsions and cough up blood, thinking that she was talented in everything. The poor thing is fine. The maids immediately surrounded her, offering their help. Why did Agnes throw the girl? She was brought by the owner, and sweat was dripping down the culprit's face. "Enough," she said in a steely voice, and Davina immediately looked up at Isabella. What was wrong with her? The heiress's hair was like hot lava, and it looked beautiful. But in the general family photo, Isabella Weiss's hair was mint-colored, which was strange. The heiress quickly turned away and thought about something. It seemed that Davina was about to be sentenced. And then Isabella said wearily, "Sophie, call the family doctor here." The vile maid stared at her mistress in bewilderment and let merrily put the girl on the bed. And finally, she added in a steely voice, Agnes would do better to explain. The predatory gaze moved to the victim of the beating. "Hey, you over there." Davina immediately froze in alarm. What was this girl's name? The heroine chirped her name with the most innocent look. Isabella doesn't like it when things like this happen. None of her maids are to treat another person rudely, and Isabella is responsible for this. The heiress asks her to allow the doctor to examine her, to make sure that Davina is okay. The girl began to back away, assuring that she was fine. "I insist," Isabella growled. "This is not just a whim, it is her health, and it is also an order," the heiress said with frightening pressure. Davina felt like a defenseless rodent in a predator's lair and obediently nodded her head. The maid immediately helped her to get settled on the bed. It was all strange. In the novel, this redhead was a real pain, but now she's quite all right. The heroine did not remember all her atrocities. She only knew that she had strained Davina's nerves to the limit. And when the main character exploded, it delighted the readers. But this little one is only 15. What harm can she cause to an adult aunt from another universe? Davina was going to pretend to be hurt and play on her feelings, but the redhead was scarier than she expected. So the doctor announced his verdict. The patient was completely healthy, except for a few bruises. The doctor will prescribe an ointment. "What a relief," said Bella, and threw a withering glance at her maid. "What Agnes is waiting for." "It's time to explain everything." The maid nervously grabbed her wrist. "Damn." And then she screamed hysterically, "This brat actually stole the mistress's dress." Agnes tried to take the thief to Miss Isabella and did not push her at all. "So she stole the dress?" The heiress crossed her arms in front of her. "And what will Davina say?" The girl immediately squeezed out tears. How dare she? Besides, does Isabella ever leave her chambers? The lady would have noticed if Davina had come in, but Agnes would not have given that girl such a beautiful dress. "Look closely," the girl chirped. "You gave it to me." The very dress that, according to the maid, was the most worn and dirty. Agnes immediately bit her lip, and her face turned deathly pale, and it was strange. Obviously, the maid was afraid of her mistress's wrath, but why? Wasn't it Isabella's own order to poison Davina? But then why is Agnes deprived of her support? What if there was a problem in the relationship between the main character and the villain's daughter? This redhead, although she scared Davina to death, still didn't seem bad. It is necessary to hand over the evil aunt. Agnes forced the girl to sew herself a dress due to a shortage of workers. Otherwise, Davina would have worn clothes from the orphanage, but how could she so disgrace the house of the Duke who took her in? Agnes also brought only ice-cold water for washing due to the lack of firewood for heating. The girl decided that there were problems in the Duke's house and did not want to create more problems, so she sewed a dress for herself. In order not to disgrace the Duke's family, the maid immediately roared, "This is all some kind of nonsense." And she added that she would never dare to tarnish the name of Madame Isabella. The villainess's keen gaze immediately fixed on the girl's dress, and Davina felt uneasy. "The girl is right," the heiress said in a steely voice. "This is the dress she threw out not long ago. And this girl's sewing skills are simply wonderful." The maid almost passed out. And then Isabella approached the poor unfortunate woman, but Davina is skilled in verbal manipulation. Agnes has always been quite hot-tempered and has made many mistakes, but she is not that stupid. "Excuse me," Davina chirped in a thin voice. "Well, the doctor will probably leave from here." The heroine swallowed nervously. "You mean to say that I'm lying?" And Isabella was dangerously close. "No, but Davina is a skilled manipulator. And the incident with Agnes is embellished for her, isn't it?" Davina clutched the blanket. "Who is she?" "She is completely different from the one in the novel. There is no trace of that superficial and spoiled girl. But she is actually scary." Isabella realized that the girl is not so simple when she heard that Hares fell in love with her immediately. In any case, Agnes behaved inappropriately, and Isabella apologizes for her. And he also promises that this will not happen again. And what is wrong with this villain? A rich heiress personally apologized to a peasant orphan for her servant, and where has such a thing ever been seen before? Her nobility of soul is blinding, more than the sun. Stop. Davina must not give in. The girl bit her lip. There was no need to apologize to her. Davina is just glad that there are no misunderstandings left between them. Wait, she just ruined her own reputation. But Isabella seems so good. She's a fan of hers now, and they'll be friends forever. What was she thinking? Actually, she needed to introduce the redhead to Prince Hares. "All the rumors about Davina and the prince are lies," she blurted out unnaturally. "It must all have been made up by those greedy newspaper vultures. And even if the crown prince liked Davina, it was only as a friend. The prince fell in love with the orphan after one glance." "Nonsense," she squeaked, but such denial usually says the opposite. The thought was unpleasant. Like a 15-year-old being trained by profilers, Davina swallowed nervously. And it only strengthened her suspicions that she needed to stop acting like an amateur. Davina will be arrested for treason if she says that Hares is not her type at all. What Isabella blurted out in shock. "Well, I mean, the crown prince is, of course, good," Davina tried to explain. "But the girl is still too young to be interested in boys. And most likely, mislikes Hares much more." The girl heard that they had been friends since childhood. "And how does she know this?" Davina smiled. The prince himself told her. A blatant lie. Hares is so happy when he talks about Isabella, and again Davina was blatantly lying to her. "He was talking about me," the heiress said, confused. "And why isn't she squealing with delight?" The heroine was sure that the redhead had feelings for him, but what was it with her face? Damn, it looks like Davina just got into something with what's going on here. Everything is not at all as it was described in the novel, and what she has just done. "In any case, I was going to find you," the villain suddenly said. And it's good that Davina saw her first. And why was the heiress looking for the girl? Derek had told her to provide her with everything she needed, and Isabella knew that request had come from her father. Taking the notorious orphan from the orphanage was solely the father's decision. Isabella and her mother were against it, and to be honest, she still finds her presence here problematic. Davina swallowed nervously, which meant the redhead was advising her to keep a low profile. "Don't worry," the girl blurted out immediately. "She will live as if she is not here. Davina doesn't need to eat all 3 times a day." She winked at the villain, giving him a thumbs up. Isabella immediately blushed. She didn't want to offend the girl at all. And she shouldn't starve. Isabella isn't going to be horrible to her. Hooray! We can eat. Davina immediately became languid. The heiress is a good girl again. Moreover, if the girl stays to live in this house, she will later beg Isabella to expel her. And the heroine immediately wilted. The redhead again seemed scary. Even for Isabella, becoming a member of the Wyss family was not easy. Her fingers trembled nervously. The villainess immediately pressed her hand to herself and turned away to tell the truth. She didn't belong here. Davina stared at one point in bewilderment, wondering what was going on here. One thing was clear, something was wrong with the only heir of the villains. But Davina had no intention of stirring up the family secrets of these rich people. She couldn't be seen in the light. And then Isabella suddenly extended her hand, sending shivers down Davina's spine. And the heiress whispered, "Just try to get used to this place. And maybe someday Isabella will call the girl her sister." At this moment, Davina became the head of her fan club. They would become friends, and even a fairy tale man would not ruin it. After Isabella appointed Leah as her maid, she had never worked as a servant before. The girl nodded modestly to Davina as a sign of their acquaintance. It would be better that way. Let the girl take Leah with her, since she has lost trust in Isabella's maids. Davina's smile widened. She was glad to meet the new girl. Leah is happy to serve the little mistress, so all this time the main character believed that Isabella was behind the persecution of Agnes. And this is not surprising, because in the novel the heiress was described as such a villain. However, it seems Isabella has enough problems of her own. By the way, my lady, Leah suddenly spoke up. There were all sorts of rumors going around about Miss Davina, and their assistant overheard it out of the corner of her ear. So wonderful. She and the crown prince have an unearthly love. They even came up with names for them, Dares or Havina, and the lady herself chose what she liked best. Since the gentleman married the madam, love has not been heard of here for so long. Apparently the little miss is not in the know. Once upon a time there lived a man in a village, and unfortunately he inherited the title of duke at a young age. And after the tragic death of his parents, he threw himself headlong into managing the family estate. He was so carried away that at the age of 28 he remained single, which was unthinkable given his unearthly beauty, wealth, and coveted title. And of course, almost all the young ladies of the capital dreamed about him. However, alas, the heart of the young aristocrat was always as impregnable as a rock, until a 16-year-old girl appeared on the horizon, barely having time to go out into the world. The beloved daughter of the Marquis Ludini vowed to win the heart of the inaccessible young man at any cost. Then she plucked up her courage and started a conversation with him. "Let me invite you to a waltz." "Find another companion," he snapped, having no intention of letting such a young lady get close. Then no one could have imagined that this was only the beginning. The young lady pursued the Duke for 3 years. And in the end, she despaired of a plan that no young lady would have dared to undertake because of pride. 12 years older, I won't allow it," roared Marquis Ludini. He even dared to refuse his precious daughter. He completely lost his fear. The Marquis will force the scoundrel to agree to a meeting. And under the relentless pressure of these two, the poor fellow finally agreed. Although the young man still did not give up hope of getting rid of the harassment of the capricious heiress. But during their meeting, something unexpected happened, something that served as a reason for their rapprochement. And soon the two were discussing their future engagement. This is how several years of harassment, threats, and blackmail turned into a romantic story. It turns out that Catherine took poor Wyss by attrition, and where is there any romance here at all? Davina listened to the maid's story for a whole day, but something didn't add up. I know, Leah smiled. Mistress Catherine is running after a man, knowing her. It's hard to believe. But overall, their mistress is a real cutie, the assistant chirped. Even their master, known as a piece of ice, melted before her charm. And again, everything was wrong in the novel. Catherine was a cruel and calculating woman. But here she was spoken of as a sweet and charming lady, which meant that Fard was a devoted and loving husband. And she always considered him a rotten politician with no feelings for others. This means that the Duke wanted to test Ioana's influence on his daughter, and that's why he adopted her against the wishes of his beloved wife. And someone planned to use this family only as a means of escape, Leah is very aware. In all this time, the maid was the first one who treated Davina well and did not take advantage of her. Although, on the other hand, the closer Leah is to her, the more influential her position in the house will be. Damn, the assistant must be afraid that others will hate her, for the fact that she became a servant to a freeloader from an orphanage. But why did the mistress think so? Davina has become a thorn in everyone's side here, and Mrs. Catherine doesn't even greet her. And if anyone tries to bully Leah for this reason, let them not hesitate to pretend that she is on their side. Even insult me if necessary, the girl added good-naturedly. The maid tried to object, but Davina didn't let her just do as she was told. Nobody likes the orphan here, and that won't change, so there's no point in suffering because of her. Mistress, don't say that. The maid's voice trembled. Stop. Why did she decide to cry? Leah burst into tears that she would never leave her mistress. Even Lady Isabella said that she might someday accept Davina as a sister. Leah squeezed the girl's hands tightly. Lady Isabella will definitely recognize her, and Duke Fard will love her. Then Madame Catherine will recognize Miss Davina. The maid is sure of it. Nonsense, the girl thought to herself. Fard is just using the well-known orphan from the newspapers. And Catherine considers her filth and will never accept her as her daughter. And it doesn't matter at all whether Isabella will consider Davina her sister or not. Since the Duke only took Davina to set her up with the prince, this competition will alienate the girls. So, unfortunately, Leah's words were never destined to come true. For some reason, a small ember of hope still smoldered inside the girl. How stupid she is, every time you want to believe her, but in the end it only hurts more. And the warm palm of the maid continued to stroke Davina's hands. Don't worry, she whispered warmly. Everything will be fine. Her life before waking up here was terrible, and the heroine will not allow this to happen again at any cost. Davina was going to be happy here no matter what it took. The girl will think only about her own happiness and love herself for everyone. All the same, in this parallel there is still no one who will love her. And of course, with the first rays of the sun, the heroine ran to fill her stomach. Such a sumptuous feast in a huge dining room, and there was not a soul around. Fard had disappeared somewhere since early morning, and the others simply avoided her, and Davina could eat it all alone. I'll join you, a voice suddenly came from behind her. No, she blurted out automatically. All this food is just for Davina. Isabella stood behind her. The heroine swallowed nervously. That is, of course, let her get comfortable. And what's with the girl's face? It looks like Davina is about to take out her shield and spear. Oh, come on, the heroine chirped. She just thought Isabella wouldn't want to sit at the same table with her. If that were the case, the heiress would easily have forbidden Davina to eat here. Isabella is curious why the girl thinks she despised her. Davina immediately broke into a smile. She could be so stupid, it was all her fault. And Isabella, with unshakable calm, declared that she had not been avoiding her, but had been busy earlier. Here Davina remembered that the Duke had been shocked by her table manners, but had allowed her to eat as she pleased. But is it possible to stuff your cheeks like that in front of Isabella, your role model? The girl reached for the middle fork with a trembling hand. It looked like it was for salad. In this case, the smallest fork was for the main dish. The girl's confusion did not escape the heiress's keen gaze, wondering what was going on. Davina was taught manners at the orphanage, but not as well as those who were taken into noble families. Therefore, the girl is not very familiar with table etiquette. You say you weren't taught as well as the others, Isabella said. It's just that not everyone had the opportunity to study, the heroine announced shyly. What do you mean others were trained, but Davina was neglected? The heiress clarified with displeasure. Many children remain orphans, and only a few manage to find a home, so educating everyone is impractical. And people like Davina should just be grateful that they weren't thrown out onto the street. The girl never considered it unfair and did not dream of more. Isabella suddenly fell silent and did not take her eyes off the girl, as if noticing something for herself. Sweat was pouring down Davina's face as the redhead stared at her silently. It was creepy. Please eat, Isabella finally said, and added that she would teach her all the rules of etiquette. But let the girl keep in mind that the heiress will not give her any leeway. It sounds threatening. Then the butler ran into the room, and he was obviously on edge. Madam, he said nervously, Duke Wyss has just returned to the estate. Isabella immediately jumped up from her seat. Why so soon? Davina should also come out and greet the head of the duchy. Good morning, father, the heiress said in a cold tone. The Duke's eyes immediately widened as Davina's head appeared from behind his daughter. The girls would have waited for the Duke to eat if they had known he would return so early. The Duke glanced quickly at the table and saw 2 sets of cutlery on it. Bella? I didn't know you were here too, he said to his daughter with a serene expression. The heiress finally decided to leave the walls of her room. Isabella immediately lowered her eyes. And her mother still wants to join, Bella shook her head. Mother still has a headache, the heiress said. The Duke rolled his eyes. Well, of course. And then his face changed abruptly, and the atmosphere became eerie. Don't forget, Bella, I knew your mother long before you did. Cold sweat was running down Davina's face. It was clear who the redhead took after when she was so creepy. Afterwards, the head of the family turned to the butler and ordered him to bring some cutlery for him too. And it seems like the atmosphere suddenly got worse because of Davina. The girl felt uneasy and began to back away. "Stop!" a stern voice ordered her. "There is no need to feel guilty," added Duke Wyss. "Please, sit down," he said and pointed to the table. "Okay," Davina swallowed nervously. This silence was driving me crazy a little more, and the girl would stick a fork into her carotid artery. It would have been better if these two had simply mocked her, the heroine thought to herself. "How is his lordship doing?" Davina blurted out, unable to bear the tension. The girl can call the Duke her father. Like Isabella, the heiress immediately lowered her eyes. Damn, what the old man is doing, Isabella hasn't even become her best friend yet, and he's already driven a wedge between them. Davina grimaced. She wasn't going to call this guy father until his daughter accepted her. The girl continued as if nothing had happened and described how her father's day had gone. So Davina's day was full of joy, as always, and what exactly brought her joy? Mrs. Isabella taught the girl a lot, and the heiress immediately became tense. This did not escape the heroine's attention, but what exactly did she say? Isabella's hands began to tremble treacherously. What was going on here? Why was she so afraid? If she simply didn't like Davina getting close to her father, Isabella would have spoken up directly. And Davina decided to continue. "My lady took care of her and told her a lot of things." The father's eyes flashed in an unkind way. It seemed his daughter had changed her mind. "These were only short conversations," the heiress explained in a trembling voice. "Isabella's father himself told her to keep an eye on Davina," she added. "These guys should go to a family psychologist or something, and Davina perhaps will go." "So what does Davina need?" the Duke suddenly asked. "Some accessories if she wants them herself. And also dresses and shoes. Isabella gave her her clothes, but this is not enough. They are not her size at all." What a cutie! Bella shows with her whole appearance that she doesn't like Davina, but she is so attentive to her. Maybe the girl needs something else. The Duke suddenly turned to her. "Don't be shy," he added immediately. Davina didn't misheard just now. There were a lot of witnesses here. This guy offers to buy her as many dresses as she wants. "Old man, get out your gold, lots of gold." Davina licked her lips. "The more the better," the girl blurted out. "She wants lots of beautiful outfits." "What?" Isabella froze in shock, but her father was obviously pleased with the answer. For the first time in all this time, the Duke laughed. "And how many dresses does little miss want?" "This family is fabulously rich." The heroine's chin began to water. She shouldn't waste time on trifles. And then Davina, after thinking carefully, showed 5 fingers she needed at least 5 elegant dresses. The head of the duchy's eyes widened. 5 dresses?" he asked again. The girl immediately deflated. It was unclear whether the Duke was unhappy that she had named so little, or so many. Which way should she change the number? Cold sweat was running down her face. The heroine began to unclench her fingers even more. The guy wouldn't go broke after 5 dresses. "And if the girl is too greedy, 5 will be enough," Davina immediately blurted out. Isabella's fork fell with a loud bang onto the table. At least 15, unable to bear it. She roared. "And this is only for spring, but you will need shoes, gloves, and hats. And a few more warm capes because it's already getting cold," the heiress added. "And even if Davina is not used to it, she will still have to buy at least a couple of sets of jewelry." Naturally, Isabella's words caused cosmic bliss in the girl. Even if you buy 10 of the most ordinary t-shirts at the supermarket, the total will be more than 50,000 won. But here are dresses made from the best fabrics, and even made by hand. It's crazy how this guy earns his living. And the face of the languid Duke shone with pride for his daughter. It seemed that Bella would have to teach her a lot. Fard cleared his throat and returned to his cold expression. Davina must listen carefully to Bella's instructions. However, the father does not demand that she be as perfect as her daughter, and the girl immediately froze. Bella is more developed than 5 adults combined. Davina has perked up finally, some paternal praise. Although the Duke obviously went overboard with his praise for his daughter, he is still not that bad. The heroine couldn't even imagine that she would see her heiress so red. And as for the girls, the meal was delighted, especially the desserts. For some reason, the atmosphere became so calm and peaceful after that, it seemed like each of them relaxed. This is an adoptive father who uses Davina only as a tool, and a sister who wants to get the main character out of this world. But for some reason now they looked like a real family. It seems that everything is not so bad, the girl thought to herself. And I was also glad that pretending to be a family wouldn't be so problematic. And it's even interesting, like Davina in the game, she only has one character left to go through. And in Isabella's head, Davina's words kept ringing, not everyone had the opportunity to study at the orphanage. But the girl was still grateful for the roof over her head and didn't even think of dreaming about more. That's why I had no particular reason to be upset about what it's like to live like this. To forever suppress one's desires and yet live in peace with oneself. Something Isabella had never experienced before, the heiress mentally transported herself to her past. Her father told her every time that she should look after the forest. You always have to be on your guard, and behind the broad foliage there are rotten roots hidden. Some trees may have been cut down by strangers. A good leader should be able to notice this. This forest is the Duke's creation. Just as the father tried to grow a forest for his daughter, so she should do the same for their family. She was expected to be a better leader than her father, and that was what everyone expected from Isabella, nothing less. And of course, the girl promised him that she would definitely become like that. "Please don't disappoint me," the voice repeated. "Be the best. Do it right." The reputation of the entire family rested on the shoulders of the frightened girl. And with each passing year it got worse. Isabella had just started, and a break was already needed. The mother boiled over. Catherine smiled venomously. Her father has high hopes for his daughter, and each family teaches its heirs differently, and the daughter understands this. The heiress of House Wyss must bear the weight of the crown in order to wear it. The father had no doubt about his daughter's success, and let it continue that way, Catherine added. But what if Bella can't handle it? What if she's not smart or strong enough to become the head of the Wyss? What happens if the only heir to the Grand Duchy fails to live up to all these expectations? The girl winced in fear rather than disappoint her parents. She would rather deny herself. The queen's voice drowned out all the other voices. She would make Isabella the next queen. However, if the poor thing does become the head of the Wyss house, she will have to carry everything on her own. But if the girl becomes queen, she will be able to share this burden with her father, and other subjects of the crown. There are other ways to make her shine, to become a queen. One of them. "No way," the father's roar echoed in the room, but their daughter said she would rather marry the crown prince. But are these her own desires? Has Catherine ever heard about this before recruiting Ioana? And who will then inherit the Wyss title? Bella is their daughter, not a tool for increasing their wealth. After that conversation, all she could do was run. She was scared. Is becoming a queen the right choice? It seems there is no other way but to disappoint my father. Was Isabella smart enough to make him famous? The thought ate at the poor girl from the inside. With so much placed on her, the girl covered her face with her hands in exhaustion. She doesn't even have the strength to understand Davina's feelings. She was so happy today. And it seems she was glad that Isabella helped her. Does she really like talking to her? Such a strange girl, and perhaps Isabella will never fully understand her. Even her father is often shocked by her statements, and it's not surprising. However, the daughter had not seen her father smile so widely for a very long time. And does father really think, as he said at the table today, does he really think his daughter is worth any 5 adults? Isabella's cheeks flushed traitorously, but that didn't mean anything at all. And it doesn't mean that she likes that girl or anything like that, she assured herself. However, one way or another, Davina's ignorance could reflect on the reputation of the Wyss family. Time to roll up our sleeves. A loud squeal echoed throughout the entire central street finally. It was shopping day. And for once, the heroine will spend time alone with her own thoughts. Damn! Davina clenched her fists. She could easily go shopping on her own. Isabella muttered coldly that her father had told her to look after the girl. And therefore, if Davina buys something tasteless, then her father will be dissatisfied with Isabella. It's still hard for the redhead, the heroine noted to herself. Let Davina just say what she wanted to buy, and the heiress will think about it. Well, there is one thing that I dreamed about for a long time as a girl. Let her post it before Isabella changes her mind. The girl's pupils immediately dilated. She dreamed of magic hair dye. About that very sensational potion from the sorcerer, which all the ladies of the capital obsessively bought up. This paint had a temporary effect, so there was no need to worry about the consequences. Of course, Davina's hair was already perfect, but since she was in the world of magic, she had to try it. The girl learned this from Leah when she explained why Bella's hair was mint-colored in the portrait. The heiress used this magic potion, and now the youngest needs it too. Hair coloring with magic went out of fashion pretty quickly, but why not? In that case, Davina is very glad that Bella went with her. What a little manipulator she is. The center of the capital greeted them with bustle and bright shop windows. "No!" Davina screamed. "What is she doing?" The girl was actively gesturing with her hands and begging Isabella to stop. Davina just looked. No need to buy all this, but Bella didn't hear her. They take everything from this edge to that. This crazy woman bought absolutely everything that Davina looked at for more than 3 seconds. Hats, bows, earrings, a strange crystal ball that she didn't need at all, unless it was as a nightlight. Davina just said that this thing was strange, and Bella immediately told the merchant to pack it up. Cakes, pies, and cookies were the least of all expenses. Today the duchy will go broke. The heroine didn't even have time to examine everything that the heiress offered her to buy, and she hardly understood how to move all this to the estate without magic. But Isabella was unstoppable. She bought everything that was on display in the store. Even Davina's greed begged her to stop after 5 hours in the boutiques. "Shut up and learn from my example," Isabella snapped. "They are ridiculously rich, and a member of the House of Whis cannot allow such a small amount to bother them. Spending money is their duty. So for someone like the heiress of the Vis family, it is a sin to be stingy." Wow, Davina already believed in everything she said. She would proudly walk through the world with the philosophy of the rich. The woman announced that their coffee shop had fresh pastries, and Isabella ordered 15 of each to be packed. "Stop!" the heroine squealed. "It will all end with the leftovers having to be thrown away." What is she talking about? Isabella took treats for the servants and was going to share them with everyone, especially because of the consequences of those problems that the staff had to experience firsthand. Indeed, the heiress really does care about everyone around her. While Davina herself brought everyone a lot of problems, by the way, about that servant Agnes. Isabella made sure she would never dare to harm Davina again. Does this mean that the girl is one of those whom Isabella cares about? She is doomed to fall in love with Davina, and later they will be inseparable, the heroine dreamed. Then the heroine would like to choose a gift for Leah. Isabella is all for it. The luxury dazzled from the very beginning. The girl didn't know that food could be brought into the salon from other places. "It's only because they rented this salon for the whole day," Bella explained wearily. "The whole salon?" "She's serious now, choking," Davin blurted out. Isn't it typical of Bella that she wants to see all the salon employees focused on her? Well, on the other hand, what did the heroine expect from the members of this family with their position? After all, the only ones in this state who are above the Vis family are the royal family. "They are from the House of Whis, remember that well," Isabella said. "Everyone knows that." Just a little bit more, and Davina will fall in love with her, to say that without even blinking. The woman left the hall and announced that all preparations were complete, and it was time for them to go. "Please," the assistant chirped, and Davina's jaw dropped. Wow, and the heroine is allowed to choose something here. Her eyes could hardly bear all this luxury. "They will take that dress from the main display case for the spring." Davina was afraid to even breathe on it. "We also need shoes for a picnic, as well as casual and dance shoes. Let the assistant also pack each pair from the display case in different colors. But the heiress will take these white pumps for herself. And those black ones, I don't want them to go to anyone else," Isabella explained. How could this be a reason to waste money? Didn't Duke Whis get angry about it? Didn't he ask to be called father? Or is Davina only so obedient in front of him? And as soon as the Duke turns away, the girl disregards his orders. How dare she? For some reason, the heiress's cheeks turned red, and the next words came with difficulty. "And while we're at it, Davina can call Isabella her sister too." Since they were calling the same man father, addressing her as mistress was starting to get on her nerves. Of course, Bella didn't expect this right away. The girl herself needs to get used to it. If it weren't for the novel, the heroine might have thought that she was pleasing to the villain. But we must not forget that the only reason she helps Davina is the Duke's orders. The heroine sighed. "It was close, don't forget. You're just being used," she reminded herself. But Davina isn't going to answer anything. The girl stretched into a duty smile. Now Bella is her little sister. Then the heiress gave her a displeased look. It seemed Davina had forgotten. Their father said that the girl could take absolutely anything she wanted. And if she finally understood why they were here, let her try on everything here. The heroine doesn't need to be asked twice. She won't keep her sister waiting long. Davina immediately rushed to the fitting room. The porters would have a hard shift today. Isabella watched the girl with a thoughtful gaze, as if noting something for herself. And then she slowly said the word sister, as if tasting it. "A couple of minutes ago, she said that that store is somewhere here." The heiress stretched her back. Davina seemed to want magic paint, didn't she? "The store is somewhere nearby. Run yourself," she said. "If necessary, the girl can take servants. Bella needs a rest." The heiress told her not to hurry. It seemed she was very tired. Finally, freedom before this, the heroine had no opportunity to look around. But on the shopping street, the signs only bore the names of the owners. Why didn't any of them write what they were selling? How could Davina find the shop she needed? Yes, thinking too long never helps in such situations. I just need to ask someone, the girl finally decided. And very conveniently, she came across one woman. "Excuse me, you don't know where the magic shop is?" Davina yelled. The girl needs magic paint, but it has gone out of fashion and is hardly sold anywhere. Or rather, not a single shop in the area sells such things. It's unlikely that the heroine's heart could withstand such a blow. A deafening roar echoed throughout the street, which is why the heroine suffered all this. After a dramatic scene, the stranger took pity on her and suggested going to the shop for 1,000 little things. The girl had to follow the brick road to the very end. And then the curious little girl would immediately understand where this shop was, and Davina obediently went into the gateway. And at first everything was as usual. Small shops, friendly sellers. The girl had been following the unknown woman's lead for quite some time, and nothing. The heroine had already begun to think that she had simply deceived her. Then Davina looked up and squealed in horror at how she ended up in this terrible place. And this is definitely the same settlement. Cold sweat was running down her forehead. The girl read the name of the street on the fallen sign, Raquel Street, 43. Surely 43 is the number of those killed in this house? Davina shook. Here the heroine's eye caught the very same treasured sign, a shop of 1,000 little things. But Davina no longer wanted to go inside. She needed to listen to the redhead and take the servants with her. The girl sighed heavily. Stop being such a coward, she told herself. Because of her, Isabella already has a lot of problems, and Davina must deal with this one herself. You can do it, you can do it, she kept repeating and abruptly opened the shop doors. The inside of the gloomy little shop was covered in cobwebs and mold, and a human skull lay on the table. Wherever the girl ended up, even though everything here looks creepy, it still reminds me of a magic shop. Davina stepped forward with much more confidence, but immediately paid for it. A glass vase appeared under her foot, and of course, the heroine fell heavily to the floor. The culprit immediately collapsed under Davina's weight, but managed to strike back. Davina struggled to get up and ran her hand over the back of her head, which hit her hard. But the girl was still able to get to her feet without outside help. And what kind of idiot thought of putting a glass vase right at the feet of customers? Someone might get hurt, and then Davina felt a sharp pain in her arm. Damn, it looks like the girl cut herself on the shards of the vase, and also on her dress. It was torn and covered in her blood. Damn vase. Davina had already regretted 100 times that she had gone to the end. Suddenly, some strange smoke began to billow out of the broken vase. And then wisps of smoke surrounded the entire room and began to emit a magical glow. An icy shiver ran down the heroine's spine. And what was this? Davina turned towards the light in horror and screamed, "This is where she would die." The girl's body immediately felt a surge of strength, and she jumped up as if nothing had happened. She had to run. The merciless gusts of wind swallowed everything around, and then Davina realized that it was too late to run. At that very moment, the terrible tornado pulled the poor thing towards itself. "Leave me alone," Davina ordered him, but it was all in vain. Then the girl noticed a wooden beam and, without thinking, grabbed onto it with all her might. Furniture and heavy artifacts were thrown around the room, trying to hit the captive in the head. Is this really how she will die? But she has not yet had time to become happy and rich. Suddenly, the doors of the shop opened, and the heroine saw him in a pillar of light. "What are you doing here?" he roared, and immediately grabbed her hand. And then Davina felt a sharp push, and the next minute she was already flying into another hall. A loud splash was heard in the room. The girl landed right in some kind of foul liquid. The stench made her eyes pop out of her head, but Davina didn't care anymore. After all, she turned out to be alive. The girl immediately checked all parts of her body, and she was also unharmed. But who saved her? In the darkness through the typhoon, she could only make out his silhouette. Davina poked her head out from her hiding place and called out warily, "Sorry, are you okay there?" Everything in the room was destroyed, and her savior was probably stuck under the rubble. "We need to call someone to help him as soon as possible. What if he is already dead?" "Hey, you!" suddenly came from behind her, and the heroine immediately jumped up in place like a cat. "That same guy," Davina quickly realized. "What have you done?" he immediately threw at her. It wasn't Davina who launched that deadly thing. That pain again. The girl suddenly grabbed her right side. Everything repeated itself just like in their first meeting. And in the heroine's lower abdomen, a nasty lump was once again clenching, and she was overcome with anxiety. And his look, why does she want to find refuge when she meets him? It must all be part of the novel's twisted plotline. But why pair the main character with some random secondary character? That's nonsense. Here the girl noticed that the savior was staring at her. "Who are you?" he asked casually. That is, the boy did not remember Davina at all, and how could he forget such a cutie? But on the other hand, it's even better this way. The heroine will pretend that she doesn't remember him either. Davina immediately pretended to be innocent. She was just an ordinary customer. The girl looked into the magic shop for hair dye, 1 bottle of it, and they will be gone. The buyer then, the guy smiled slyly, and this was her shopping. The girl created all this chaos just to change her hair color. It's not like that. Davina didn't even have time to touch anything. She was just looking for the magic paint. "It's right in front of her," the guy said with a stone face and pointed his finger at the chest. What the hell? Where did it come from? And why hadn't she noticed it before? And as luck would have it, this particular part of the shop had survived. "Where the hell is the owner of this shabby little shop?" The guy smiled. He was also right in front of the blonde. What a nasty thing. Davina bared her teeth, and she had to embarrass herself like that in front of him. She had to attack first, she decided, and with the most serene expression, she declared that she had made a mistake. And she was also grateful to the boy for saving her. Her fingers reached for the treasured bottles. Davina wanted to buy only 1 potion, but as a sign of gratitude, she will buy them all. The girl has been compassionate since childhood, so she will not sue him for the injuries she received. "What an impudent woman," the young man said crisply. "She destroyed everything here and considers herself entitled to sue." Damn, this guy isn't that simple. But the heroine already has a plan in her head. Didn't the boy know that this is a new court ruling? He, as the owner, bears most of the responsibility. And in cases of slippage, the buyer is always right. What is the blonde talking about? It could go on like this for a long time, and the buyer would be left in the dark whether the floor was wet or not. Therefore, according to the court ruling, the owner must cover 80% of the damage and compensate the buyer. The boy picked the wrong one in front of him was an ant who had worked for several years with greedy clients and a hellish boss. In short, it wasn't Davina's fault that she slipped. He knew that. There was not a single sign warning of this in the teenager's shop. "So let the brown-haired man be glad that Davina is not suing him. Stand." A threatening voice sounded behind her. It seems it didn't work. Maybe the heroine will just run away with the treasured jars. The magic dye comes in a variety of shades, but the blonde had trouble seeing the selection. Wait, why did he suddenly become so polite? Davina destroyed half the shop for him. This guy must be very dedicated to his craft, which is only to the girl's advantage. Davina walked down the steps warily. Perhaps she would take a couple more bottles. And what color does the customer want? She heard that there are special color options. That's why Davina wanted something unusual. Maybe the brunette had heard about the space ruler. In the capital, they said that this line shone like stars in the sky. The boy smiled widely. He knew this collection well. So, after causing immodest damage, the heroine finally decided to return. "I'm back," she said nervously. Isabella spat tea on her dress in shock. And of course, the whole salon was horrified, and Isabella's screams did not subside, wondering what kind of hell Davina had fallen into. Through her screams, the girl managed to say that she fell down the stairs. Isabella would have believed her anyway if she had told the truth, and luckily, a new dress was found quickly. An hour later, the heiress finally calmed down, and her sister managed to rest, Davina clarified nervously. And the girl found that very magic paint just as she wanted. Usually, several bottles are mixed at once to obtain a special color. Hadn't they told Davina about this? Isabella immediately doubted. No, she immediately handed over that guy. That seller assured her that this bottle could handle it alone. Isabella thought that perhaps this was a solution for those who didn't want to bother with mixing. When they got home, the girl couldn't wait to dye her beautiful hair. She shouldn't wave her arms like that, otherwise she'll rip this dress too. And there are no spare outfits in the carriage, Davina smiled, but now a whole 100 of them are waiting at home. Given Bella's and the Duke's character, Davina now thought hopefully of Catherine as well. Or she is too naive in any case. After the incident in the shop, nothing worse will happen. The magical tornado that almost took her life with it, that boy has already saved her life twice. And why did the girl now remember Isabella's mother? After a hard day, you need to put all your worries aside and just enjoy beauty treatments. And at the Wyss estate, the Duchess greedily read every word on the piece of paper, damn it. Fard, her fingers crumpled the sheet of paper. He crosses the line of no return. The Duchess bared her teeth at how this idiot dared to go against her word. The piece of paper flew into the fireplace. Catherine will be impatiently waiting to see where this will all lead now. Catherine's nails slid across the glass, making a nasty scraping sound. This time the woman was not going to back down, no matter what. This won't last long. Catherine will do everything to stop him. How dare Fard write her such a letter after this and call Catherine his beloved? It was the first time Catherine had avoided her husband for so long, and to put it bluntly, the Duke was seriously worried. He wrote to her that while Catherine continued to avoid him, Fard still loved her as before. Catherine ran a neurasthenic hand through his scarlet hair, wondering how this man could have changed so much. "That girl is nicer than Catherine thinks. Stop taking it out on her out of anger at your husband," Fard suddenly declared. The Duchess bit her nails. How dare he say such a thing? Catherine knew very well that her husband was the kind of person who would do anything to achieve his goals. But how could they do this to their own blood? Fard had no right to do this, to give away what belonged to Isabella. The Duchess turned away from the window in disgust when she saw the carriage passing by. Poor Bella. But just recently, her child assured her that the orphan knew her place, and was not so bad at all. It was all Fard's doing, since Isabella tried to convince her mother to back off last night. And who is this girl so soft-hearted? Her parents were never known for that. No, her daughter says this because of her father. That scoundrel even forced her to accompany this child today. Seeing her daughter, Catherine put her palm to the glass. Her poor girl. Just look at Bella, she's absolutely silent right now. At that moment, the heiress suddenly extended her hand to the orphan and helped her down to the ground, which puzzled her mother greatly. Why the hell? Her daughter didn't seem forced into this. What happened to her? Why did she so meekly take the side of that streetwalker? And those words from the daughter about Catherine giving her a chance, that the girl was very nice. There was definitely something wrong with this brat. The Duchess knew her family members too well. What kind of magic is that girl using, and what does she want to achieve with it? Catherine suddenly woke up. The Duchess clenched her fists. She thought it would all take a few days, but they had more serious problems than expected. Catherine will not remain in the shadows any longer. She must act immediately. "Beryl," Catherine said in a steely voice, "bring that child to me." It was time for the guest of their house to meet its hostess. And in Davina's chambers, her maid squealed in horror at how deep the cut was. How the little lady endured this pain all the way home, but the girl assured her that she was fine. "But my lady was bleeding," Leah protested. "It was just a scratch." What a relief that there are still some healing potions left in this house. Otherwise, the lady would have been left with a scar. A sweet smell filled the room. Wow. Davina was delighted. Her wound on her arm immediately healed. This means that the girl had never seen healing potions before. This is terrible. What kind of life did the young lady live? It seems Davina got the most sentimental servant. We need to change the topic urgently. By the way, a girl bought some magic paint here, which obviously surprised Leah. She thought it had already been taken off the market. No, for this thing Davina went through a real thriller. The brat was unlucky. And what color did the lady choose? Davina proudly held up her index finger, the Milky Way from the space ruler. "The color of the galaxy," Leah said dreamily. "It consists of 5 bright tones." The maid immediately beamed. She couldn't even imagine how beautiful it could be. "We need to try out the magical device immediately. Leah will help the lady dye her hair." The maid immediately filled the bath with hot water. It's like using regular shampoo. But Davina was only worried about 1 bottle being enough for her entire head of hair. The heroine stretched out lazily in the warm water, and the maid carefully ran her fingers through her hair. What a life! After the horror in that guy's shop, she needed this for these rich people. Every day is a holiday. Davina began to imagine herself with a new hair color. Wouldn't she become the most beautiful flower in the capital? But what if she likes the cosmic shade much more than her natural one? You can't just jump on the first color. A girl should try everything. Here, cold sweat started to run down the maid's face. Here's the thing. The lady was sure that she had chosen the right shade in that store. Davina immediately tensed up. Leah covered her mouth with her hand in horror. The lady should first look at this before continuing. The maid, with trembling hands, brought the mirror to her mistress. But what happened there? Why was Leah so worried? Any shade would look great on Davina's gorgeous hair. But seeing her reflection in the mirror, the heroine immediately grimaced. What the hell? Then there was an insistent knock at the door, and someone's frightened voice announced that Madame Catherine was looking for Davina. That embittered lady with her complaints. The girl swallowed. Why now? Catherine folded her fan angrily. She couldn't believe that some little scoundrel had made her wait. This brat already seemed to be at home and dared to disregard Duchess Wiss. The maid nervously announced that the girl needed time to prepare for their meeting. It's nonsense that it can take so long to cook. She's not baking a cake in the bedroom. Catherine will not allow herself to be manipulated. Get out of my way, she roared. The Duchess was immediately greeted not by her daughter, but by this cunning girl who dragged Bella along with her. However, Catherine won't let her daughter's presence stop her. It was a great honor for Davina to meet the mistress of the estate. The girl jumped up immediately. "Don't even dare say hello to me," the Duchess growled through her teeth. Then, before her eyes, the scarf flew off the unwanted guest's hair. What the hell? The Duchess immediately jumped to the side. What was wrong with this girl's hair? A few minutes earlier, the heroine, sobbing under her breath, was repeating that she was doomed. The time has come, that fateful meeting, and a worse moment for it could not be imagined. "Enough whining," the heiress immediately snapped. "Davina didn't kill anyone." "Mother won't scold her," Isabella assured her. "The girl is not guilty of anything." Well, of course, she should have seen her face when Davina took off her headscarf. But the girl was grateful that Bella did not abandon her and waited for Catherine with her. "They're coming," the maid announced nervously, and both girls on the sofa immediately shivered. "Is it legal to be so stunning?" Davina's jaw dropped. Catherine looked like Isabella's older sister, but not at all like her mother, and this gorgeous woman was disgusted to even look in her direction, as expected. The Duchess walked past her silently, lifting her chin in disgust. "It's about to begin," Davina sighed. "But first we need to say hello." But as soon as the poor thing opened her mouth, a deafening scream rang out in the room. And then her scarf flew off completely, which of course did not escape the Duchess's watchful eyes. And everyone who saw the girl's hair had the same reaction. However, watching her at the mistress of the estate was different. It was as if a bucket of slop had been poured on Davina. Cold sweat ran down Catherine's face and her lips twisted in an attempt to suppress her emotions. What the hell did she do to herself? Davina immediately apologized to her, and she put on her most innocent smile. Everything shouldn't have turned out like this. And now her hair has turned into a damn rainbow that unicorns live on. And as soon as that brat dared to encroach on what is sacred, there is nothing human in him. She knew that there was something suspicious in his sudden helpfulness. However, the temptation to steal the paint for free was too great. Davina could not help herself. And finally, he added that this color suits her best. It was as if a peacock had puked on Davina. The little bastard will pay for this. However, it seemed that the Duchess was not angry with her at all, which was strange. After all, now all that remains of those luxurious golden curls are sad memories, and all that horror that Davina went through for the sake of this damn paint turned out to be in vain. Catherine approached the rainbow girl warily, as if she were contagious. "Baby, did something happen?" she asked carefully. "Maybe someone offended her or forced her to do this." Davina burst into tears. She saw Bella with mint-colored hair in the portrait and wanted it too, but they gave her the wrong shade. The girl just wanted to become even more beautiful, even though it's hard to believe. Suddenly, the doors of the room swung open. What the hell is going on here? What is Catherine doing to Davina? The Duke heard the girls crying coming from behind the door of her bedroom. Here the man froze in shock. What artist wiped his brushes with Davina's hair? Bella sighed wearily when she saw her portrait with aquamarine hair. Davina decided to buy this wonderful tincture. However, the girl was deceived. She was sniffling, and who would refuse magic paint for free? The Duke sighed with relief, but he was already thinking that his wife had done something crazy. "Hush, little one," she whispered, stroking Davina's back. In the end, the Duke had worried in vain. The man cleared his throat in a businesslike manner. Right? There was no need to be upset about this. It's not the end of the world, and the magic paint only had a temporary effect. For some reason, the Duke had difficulty with each phrase, and he kept glancing towards his wife. And why are these two behaving so strangely? The heroine immediately switched to them. Catherine immediately covered her face with a fan and looked away, and her husband, immediately blushing, could no longer utter a word. Even Isabella seemed uncomfortable standing between the two of them. Everything went against the plot of the novel, and to be honest, it scared the heroine a little. Suddenly the bedroom window flew open and the wind caught her hair. The trio immediately turned their attention to the multicolored dome, and then a loud laugh rang out in the room. "You need to close the window. There will soon be a herd of unicorns here." Hey, actually, Davina was deprived of the most important thing here, her unearthly beauty. How insensitive. Well, at least this family has one thing in common. None of them have a sense of humor or compassion. If the three of them had finished their marathon of humiliation, Davina would like to return to the serious problem. Later they moved to the dining hall, where the servants carefully set the table. The Duke immediately asked his daughter how her trip today had gone. The heiress bit her lip, barely holding back her laughter. She was glad that Davina had managed to do all the necessary shopping, and then she turned away and giggled with her father. And yet these two are villains. If these traitors were as dazzlingly beautiful as she was, they would understand how terrible it is to lose such a gift. And although these two tried to protect her feelings, they could have handled it better, but at least Catherine was not with them. Suddenly, Catherine jumped up. "Hey, look over there!" she chirped. The ceiling shimmered with all the colors. Davina was like a nightlight. The Duke spat out his soup, unable to contain his laughter. "Listen, foster mom," Davina seethed to herself. "You're supposed to be the final boss." And she was obliged to tear out all the heroine's multicolored toe, and that's all she's capable of. The Duke broke into a warm smile. He was glad to see his wife smile again. Davina roared, "How infuriating!" "What kind of smile is this? A good guy? Where is all this cruelty and heartlessness? Are they villains or what?" The girl puffed out her cheeks. Only terrible revenge would allow her to enjoy life again. "By the way, what does Catherine think? Isn't this girl cute?" A deafening silence fell in the refectory. Since every member of House Wyss is here for the first time, now is the perfect time to bond. The Duke laced his fingers together predatorily, and cold sweat ran down Davina's face. And the red-haired ladies looked at each other in unison. Suddenly a shiver ran down the girl's spine. Something was wrong. Why does the heroine feel like a dinner that pythons enjoy? So, Catherine Wyss is the final boss that the main character of the novel must defeat. In the novel, she played the role of the main tormentor. Why she hated Davina so much is unknown. Calculating, selfish, cold-blooded, cunning, and cruel, that's all that was clear from the plot. And on top of that, their story of meeting the Duke, forcing her father to propose to her under pressure. What a lady. However, now this powerful woman behaves quietly and meekly, so strangely. And I can't bring myself to name the lady who wiped Davina's tears. What a naive idiot, the heroine scolded herself. She just hasn't yet felt the true essence of Catherine Wyss. It would have been much safer if Catherine's motives had been as clear as her husband's, but alas. "Catherine," the Duke suddenly roared. He understands her desire to give her daughter the best. But it's time to make a decision. Isabella might change her mind over time. Well, that's how the head of the family turned to his heiress, and Bella swallowed nervously and nodded. His daughter can find a sister or a friend. Let her choose for herself. She just needs to make a choice. The Duke himself considered his proposal quite good, but he would like to hear his daughter's opinion. The heiress immediately looked away and whispered, "I completely agree with you, father." "And now, Catherine," the Duke said crisply, "their daughter actually shows interest in Davina and takes good care of her." Even the servants noticed this. The Duchess looked questioningly at her daughter. "No, it can't be." And during the lesson, when Davina was getting nothing but kicks from the teacher, Bella defended her. "Isn't Catherine proud of their little girl?" Isabella immediately blushed traitorously. The heiress immediately cleared her throat in a businesslike manner. She was simply carrying out her duties. Since her mother was not well at the time, the Duchess stared at her family members in bewilderment. And meeting her husband's gaze, her voice trembled treacherously. She had no plans to spoil Isabella. To which the Duke coldly replied that to be the head of the House of Wyss, one cannot have weaknesses. Bella looked down. She didn't want to let her father down, but it seemed like she already did. A rift developed between the three family members, and none of them succeeded in breaking down the other's wall. And the reason for it all was some girl from the orphanage, Davina finally realized. It was no wonder that everyone in the house despised Davina, but now the three seemed to have come to some sort of agreement. Catherine swallowed nervously. For the first time in days, her daughter and husband seemed more close to each other. And all this thanks to that girl? The Duchess looked at Davina with obvious distrust. Catherine bit her lip and whispered through her teeth, "Whatever you say, darling." "Isabella's decision is more important than her mother's," Catherine added, placing her hand on her husband's. Both girls' jaws dropped somehow. Catherine came to terms with everything suspiciously quickly. Could it really be the power of rainbow hair? The heroine thought to herself. And of course, the Duchess will no longer allow her daughter to take on her responsibilities. "Darling," Catherine chirped, "if you let me, I'll take over Davina's training." And then she glared coldly at the girl. She couldn't promise that she would stay in this house forever. However, the Duchess hoped that Davina would bear their surname while she was here. This suits the heroine. She clenched her fists belligerently, where she should sign. Well, Catherine liked the confidence in Davina's voice, but there was something else. The Duchess smiled predatorily, letting the girl go to her private chambers immediately after dinner. Well, here it is, the heroine thought to herself, and she will not lose. Of course, Catherine's room was particularly chic, with rose gold decor everywhere. And Davina was immediately wild with delight. No wonder. Catherine's bedroom looked like a dollhouse. Indescribable, she whispered, drool running down her chin. Davina, Catherine called out to her for the third time. The girl must learn the rules of this house well. Davina immediately tensed up. And to begin with, the Duchess has no desire to call her daughter. And after these words, Catherine suddenly fell silent. What is she doing? Davina swallowed nervously, and the Duchess only said, your hair. They'll definitely look better on the street, Catherine laughed. And again, it hits the nail on the head. It's infuriating. Davina is seething. It would be better if this mother just pulled out her hair. Or maybe the stepmother realized that this was a sore spot and was deliberately tormenting the girl with it. Is that all the stepmother wanted? Davina asked frowningly. No, the Duchess immediately stated. Firstly, Catherine does not want to accept her as her own daughter, so let her stay in her room when there are guests in the estate. And he says that he is temporarily visiting the Wyss family if anyone asks. The girl obediently nodded. The Duchess will not tolerate ignorance in her house, so she had better learn some manners quickly. And one more thing, here steel sounded in Catherine's voice, she would destroy the girl for disrespecting Isabella. The Wyss family has a strict hierarchy, Catherine added, baring her teeth. Remember that well. Well, of course, the heroine broke into a smile. Bella is the best at everything. Davina is a fan of her. Well, the girl is quite observant for her age. Her grin was immediately replaced by a satisfied smile. The Duchess likes it. Davina blinked her eyelashes questioningly. And that's all. It's clear that Catherine is weak against flattery. This will be easier than expected. But judging by the book, this lady is capable of unimaginable cruelty. Davina should not relax. The girl continued to nod her head obediently, thinking about when they would stick a knife in her back. That's all, Catherine said suddenly. She had already said a lot. And then she stretched into a predatory smile. Let Davina do everything right. And she will not disappoint Duchess Wyss. The heroine immediately nodded. She understood everything. But then Catherine noticed the girl's intent gaze on her, asking what was going on. Davina wants to tell her something. The Duchess immediately threw at her. The heroine swallowed nervously. And then she blurted out that if Madame Wyss didn't mind, Davina had a favor to ask of her. What? What? Catherine choked. How impudent! She hasn't even spent a day in the estate and is already talking about requests. Davina would like to look at those beautiful dolls over there. A deafening silence fell over the room. The girl lowered her head guiltily. She had been staring at them since the moment she appeared in the room. Perhaps Catherine wouldn't let her in here again, and Davina loved the dolls so much that a simple review wouldn't hurt them. I have never seen such refined dolls, the girl chirped immediately. You can just take a closer look, Davina added. She won't touch them. Catherine nodded approvingly, but the girl should not touch anything there, and Davina had already rushed towards the dollhouse. Everything was so exquisite, every detail was impeccable, and the dolls seemed to be alive. Tears came to the corners of my eyes. Is there anything more perfect in the world? These shiny lips, Davina admired. The dolls even have manicures, and this edging on the saucers. And the miniature furniture even opens up. What kind of paradise is this? The heroine kept screaming. Unable to bear it any longer, Catherine went to the dollhouse after all. Milady Wyss had made these blankets and carpets herself. The Duchess nodded warily. This girl really was very observant. Davina had done something similar before and made a lot of money, so she knew how hard it was to put together these jokes by hand. However, it is precisely these small details that make the product look elegant, and Duchess Wyss seems to be a very enthusiastic craftsman, and of course the praise delighted Catherine. After all, her sweet Bella was never interested in dolls, even when she was little. The little girl only liked horse riding, and she found her mother's dolls stupid and useless. But this is art, Davina stated firmly, but most people think that dolls are meant for children to play with. And those who don't know simply cannot appreciate the endless charm of these details. And Davina would like to make a ring for one of Mrs. Wyss's dolls. I'm good at working with miniatures, Davin said proudly, giving her thumbs up. And the maid in the corner thanked the gods that she would not have to do this anymore. In this case, the girl can become the Duchess's new partner in creating outfits for dolls. So, to put it bluntly, it turned out to be easy to lower the main boss's guard. With the help of her doll's outfits, the heroine quickly became close to Catherine, and she didn't even suspect anything. But there was one thing: the jokes about rainbow hair continued. Catherine even put the girl out in the backyard to let the sun turn her head into a disco ball, and she brought the Duke and Isabella, who had seen this 100 times already, to look at it. "You're evil," the girl hissed, clutching a needle in her hands. She remembered every joke about coloring. But on the other hand, after such gifts, one could be patient, because now she had her own doll set. The set was given to Davina by the Duke, but the new stones were given by Isabella. Are they really villains? And that redhead didn't look like the main boss either. All this time she was just sewing dresses for dolls. And Bella wanted to help so much, but in the end she gave in and spent the money instead. "This child," the Duchess giggled. Her Bella tried so hard to understand this. Davina had already received several etiquette lessons from Miss Peregrine, and she disliked this hag the most. "Didn't Miss Peregrine tell Davina to follow Mistress Isabella's example?" the teacher roared. Ever since Catherine took up the lessons, the bespectacled witch has become a real beast. The presence of the Duchess herself added a lot of stress. When they worked on dolls together, Catherine was like the good lady next door. But during lessons, Catherine is completely different, like a ruthless tyrant in power. "Mistress Isabella learned this in a day," the hag shouted. Even she was noticeably nervous under Catherine's heavy gaze. "Disgraceful," the tormentor suddenly roared. "A stray cat would have done better." The old woman's face turned purple with anger. "Oh no, it's about to start." Davina swallowed nervously. Suddenly, Catherine's cup hit its saucer with a sharp thud. "Miss Peregrine," she growled. "It's not fair to compare Isabella to Davina, I beg your pardon," the teacher immediately chirped. And she added that comparing the vice-heiress to an incompetent orphan was insulting. That's not what the Duchess meant. This is all new to Davina, and practice is needed to improve. "If I order you to sew an outfit for the dolls," Catherine growled, "do you think you can beat Davina in this?" The Duchess immediately stopped herself. This is just her way of saying that, for example, Davina has completely different characteristics than Isabella, and Miss Peregrine uses only the steep, forgetting about the gingerbread. "Davina understands her situation perfectly well," Catherine added. "Even if she learns all the rules, high society will still find flaws in her because of her low origin. So the girl doesn't have to go through so much trouble to try to reach them. Let Davina just master the bare minimum and spend her time on something more enjoyable." The Duchess doesn't expect anything beyond the norm from the girl. She gave a thumbs up. "Relax." It was now something like support. Cold sweat was running down the heroine's face. It seemed she had tamed the villain. And having this lady on your team was a jackpot. What a relief that Davina knew how to sew outfits for dolls. "I want to discuss your teaching methods and what they entail," Catherine growled. "After dinner time came, my dear, there is something to talk about," the Duchess began immediately. In recent days, Catherine has been watching Miss Peregrine's lessons. She's quite the old hag. Davina choked on her food. Catherine thinks that it is necessary to find someone better for the girl. Even though Davina tried her best, this old woman was especially rude to her because of her background. And according to Catherine's observations, Davina's progress is better than expected. A blatant lie. This woman just lied for the heroine, Davina's jaw dropped. After which Catherine turned around and winked at the girl. That's what just happened. Davina gave the woman a thumbs up in admiration. She was now a fan. A predatory grin appeared on the Duke's face. It seemed that all that was needed was time. And then his fist rarely hit the table. Whatever the case, there is one problem. Catherine, the owner of the house, growled through his teeth. "It's all about John again." When the name of their relative, Joanna, was heard in the estate, everyone knew that trouble was coming. "This snake again demands Catherine's visit to the palace." The Duchess froze in shock. "What does she want from me?" After all, Catherine had only recently been at court and had no intention of visiting it so soon. The Duke slowly sipped from his glass. "You know what to do. The main thing is not to say a word about David in front of John. It's not for nothing that she continues to strengthen ties with Catherine after her coronation." "What is this about, husband?" Joanna, of course, is not an ideal relative, but still a member of the Wyss family. And it seems that Joanna adores their Isabella. "Nonsense," the Duke immediately roared. "Since when did Catherine become so naive? This viper adores all children except her own son. After all, the future does not depend on him." "There's no point in talking about this in front of the children," Catherine immediately hissed at him. After all, she raised the crown prince as her own son. While the second prince continues to disappoint her, it is not her fault. Rumor has it that her own son ran away to the slums and got involved with dangerous people. Catherine is truly blind and naive, because all these rumors about her own son were spread by Joanna herself. Alpheus Leanne von Arcel is a cruel and dangerous psychopath who finds joy only in causing pain to others. And the person who branded him with such shame was his own mother. When the youngest prince was about 10 years old, the previous queen was overthrown for squandering the treasury. And after that, of course, the queen's throne remained empty for some time. The king's concubine, Joanna, paid much more attention to the crown prince than his own mother. The heir to the throne himself treated Alpheus like a brother. But one day, the crown prince fell down the stairs under mysterious circumstances while playing with Alpheus. The king, who was already worried about the divorce, blamed his concubine and their son for everything. And this girl blamed her own son for the accident, wanting to prove her loyalty to the king at his expense. And of course, afterwards, she took care of the future king as if he were her own child. But even this wasn't enough for the scoundrel afterward. Rumors began to spread that Alpheus had become obsessed with his mother's attention. He allegedly showed cruelty to the maids, thereby attracting his mother's attention. And most importantly, the younger prince began to openly show hatred towards Karis. Of course, the source of all these dirty rumors was his own mother. Thanks to them, the vile creature strengthened her connection with the crown prince. And it worked. People began to praise the scoundrel for the apogee of maternal love. But she continued to pretend that she cared about her own son, but in reality she was destroying his desire to live. A prince betrayed by his own mother and forced to spend his life in the shadow of endless persecution and condemnation. And eventually, the wounded boy turned into a serial killer and a psychopath. That is why the youngest prince turned out to be much more dangerous than his mother, Joanna. Unfortunately, Duke Whis was looking for a threat in the wrong place, but on the other hand, no Joanna, no problem. And I always felt sorry for the poor prince. If it weren't for his mother, his life would have turned out differently. Since everyone already thought he was cruel, Alpheus became one, and eventually became the strongest villain of the novel. His aching thirst could not be quenched. Alpheus tried to kill his mother who had betrayed him and his older brother who had turned his back on him. And then, in order to cause as much pain to Hares as possible, he decided to kill his beloved Divina. To be honest, she liked the exhausted Alpheus, but the heroine would not let this play a role in her decisions. She cried while reading about his childhood. "Pull yourself together, you wimp." The heroine stopped. She can't afford to take care of others. So the heroine needs to be as far away from him as possible, and she must recognize him immediately by his resemblance to Joanna. By the way, and from the Crown Prince, she must avoid them at all costs. This is survival. You purulent pimple was heard in the magic shop the next day. He quickly returned his luxurious hair color. "You bastard!" Davina yelled right in the offender's face. A predatory smile appeared on the teenager's face, and he began to wonder when the girl would show up. It took a long time for the coloring book to get here. Did she really like the gift so much? "What a terrible place," the heroine said a few minutes ago. Davina frowned warily. She never wanted to return to this place again. But that little rat... A satisfied smile of the boy flashed in Davina's voice. He must answer for depriving her of what was most precious to her. The girl bared her teeth. She had to finish off the enemy today, period. She tamed the main boss of the novel in a week, which is what a 14-year-old brat would do to her. And noticing that someone's shadow flashed in the window of the magic shop, she decided that it was a sign from above. But her hand trembled traitorously when she saw the sign. Closed. What a nasty thing. Open when there is no one, and closed when there is someone. The heroine will not give up so easily. The girl doesn't want to live another day with rainbow hair. She can't stand any more ridicule. Entering the old shack, the girl again found no one there. This was starting to get on her nerves. "Hello," Davina yelled. "Is there some nasty brat here, for example?" "The magic shop is closed." The guy suddenly looked up and said with disappointment, "It's you." "You are a sadist," the heroine exploded. "How dare you encroach on the most sacred thing?" "Give me back my luxurious hair, you little brat," Davina snarled, "or she will tear him apart." However, the teenager ignored her screams and deftly removed the cap from her hair. "Cute," the boy giggled. "That's it? The brat is dead?" the girl growled through her teeth. "So Noisy also likes her hair, since she wrapped it up like a gift." "Hey, I can't see anything," the guy said dramatically. "Girl, your hair is blinding my eyes." Steam billowed from Davina's nostrils as she ordered her hair color to be restored. Quickly. The crazy woman herself asked for hair that conveys the perfect balance of the color spectrum in nature. The teenager relied on her words. The brat is climbing to his death out of turn. Let her give up new paint to cover up this darkness. She must get rid of this damn rainbow at any cost. The boy looked questioningly at Davina. The crazy woman doesn't know anything. What is he talking about now? The magic paint cannot be covered until its effect is over. A shrill scream filled the entire space. No. The heroine fell and began to beat on the floor. Today she was supposed to be as before again, beautiful. Then the boy suddenly leaned over her, so that means the girl really needs it badly, and it doesn't look like it, Davina sobbed. Well, there's one way for a teenager to get rid of the rainbow right now. The girl really wants to become a blonde again. An icy shiver ran down the girl's spine. This possessed one should just do what he asks her to. What do you think? The boy chirped. It was as if the devil was calling, the heroine thought to herself. She would regret this. The left character, who is not even described in the plot, hardly knows how to wash off paint, which is what she mutters about. But the boy has a special potion that changes the paint pigment to the desired one. She liked this guy right away. The guy recoiled. He was frightened by such a sudden change in attitude towards him. It's just that Davina is a real sweetheart and doesn't hold a grudge against others for long. She rehearsed this at home, the guy hissed. Modesty and adequacy do not visit her at all. At least the girl is cute, and who deceived her so brazenly, the guy giggled. Time to activate the charm. Davina put on her sweetest look and chirped, "Just give me the potion." But a loud slap immediately resounded across the outstretched palm. Not for free. So all this time it was about money, but the brat couldn't say anything about it right away. Now Davina is ridiculously rich, but the boy brushed her off like an annoying fly. The guy didn't need money. What he needed was her blood. What did he say? Davina whispered, as if she was in a horror movie. Now he will drag her into the basement with chains and carry her out of here in sacks. Stand, he suddenly threw at her. The girl remembers well that magical tornado that was activated by the potion. That potion wasn't that strong, but because it mixed with her blood, it had that effect. Or in other words, the soul power in her blood is comparable to a tornado. Suddenly something flashed in the teenager's eyes. The girl's blood was special. As if her soul had entered this body from another dimension, the heroine's legs immediately gave way. From another dimension, the girl repeated after him, "Who the hell is he?" In the novel, the heroine was caught by an alchemist who pretended to be the owner of an ordinary shop. The unknown man claimed to know everything about the boundaries of worlds and the travels of souls, and understood that she was a stranger here, promising to bring her back home to his world in exchange for some easy work. However, Davina was already in love with hares, and therefore decided to stay in this dimension. Marry the man of your dreams and live in the pages of a novel forever. But this alchemist turned out to be the man who taught alchemy to the second prince. Alpheus was incredibly intelligent from childhood and knew that the image created by his mother could not be corrected, and as a result, the hunted prince began to study the forbidden matter of alchemy. Or rather, he managed to force the old alchemist to teach him everything by threatening to reveal his identity. In this world, alchemy is not limited to how to make gold and silver. Here, alchemists conducted dangerous experiments in search of eternal life, and they became so proud of their research that they began to call themselves rivals of the gods. Therefore, the priests began to execute everyone who was in any way involved in alchemy. And since Alpheus's reputation was already damaged, he thought it only fair to bolster it by studying alchemy. But in fact, knowledge and skills in alchemy brought peace of mind to the second prince. As a result, Alpheus became the most powerful alchemist of his time and surpassed his teacher. He even managed to open a gate to another dimension when he tried to force Davina to return to her world, just so that his older brother could feel all the pain of loss and betrayal of a loved one. But it didn't work. Devoted to her feelings for Carrick, the heroine decided to stay. Her decision enraged Alpheus, who then grabbed his knife. The younger prince could not understand and accept that everyone adored hares, who had deprived him of everything. And then Alpheus attacked the heroine from behind and stabbed the poor thing several times. But who is this boy who so easily realized that Davina was from another dimension? The girl decided to play the very innocence. That is, there are other dimensions, she gasped. But even if that is the case, Davina is definitely from this world, and her soul did not accidentally end up in the body of this cutie from another. She's babbling something again. The guy smiled. In general, Davina has no idea what he's talking about. Radujnaya is a talentless actress, the teenager suddenly said, but no matter what, her soul is special. The heroine swallowed nervously. It didn't work. The teenager just needed the opportunity to study her. And if it wasn't her soul, he had to figure out what else could have triggered the tornado that day. The boy is just curious. That's why he needs her blood. Davina frowned. Not much of a hobby for a teenager. And giving blood to a strange boy still seems scary. He shouldn't understand who she is and where she comes from. But on the other hand, what difference does it make even if this brat finds out? After all, no one will believe this nonsense. Everyone will think the boy is crazy. Besides, the only one she really has to fear is Alpheus, and he's just a random character. So he is definitely not Hares or Alpheus. You can inhale it, and it is possible that this boy is not even an alchemist. "Hey you," the heroine said to him more confidently and added, "You're an alchemist." "What is she talking about?" the young man immediately blurted out. "This guy just mentioned blood, different dimensions, and the power of the soul." The boy immediately stretched out in radiant loss, and what prompted her to connect all these words with alchemy? "This matter is dark and forbidden. The coloring book should not know any words associated with it." The young man looked at her closely, wondering what relation she had to forbidden science. Damn, Davina immediately bit her lip. He could report this to the royal guards right now. And the study of alchemy is punishable by death, and even Duke Whis won't be able to get her out of it. No, she immediately began to deny. Davina is too stupid to be interested in science. A deafening silence filled the room, and indeed, the boy suddenly confirmed. What a bastard, he's annoying enough, and Davina's stupidity also seemed convincing to him. The teenager himself knows nothing about alchemy, he just makes potions. And then the boy reached for something in his pocket. He liked the effect of her blood. And he simply has to understand what the problem is and make his products more effective. If the rainbow gives her lucky blood, then the paint remover is hers. She has no reason not to trust him. Besides, the guy would never hurt a lady. A shrill scream echoed throughout the room. "Oh, you little rat," the heroine roared. "What the hell?" He pricked her without even waiting for her consent. And then the girl hit him on the head with her fist with all her might, and he blinked his eyes in shock. Davina will never get her blood back, but he deserved it for his lies and bullying. "I'm tired of living," the teenager suddenly said with a terrifying grimace. The heroine stepped back and squealed. Maybe he wanted another test tube with her blood. "Damn!" Davina cursed. She was so scared that she let another one of her fingers get pricked. "Get out, Rainbow," came from behind the heroine. "What a little bastard." The girl shook her fist at him. She didn't want to stay there, and he stuck his tongue out at her. "Get lost already," the teenager added. This guy still bandaged her fingers. He also gave him some delicious strawberry milk for the road, so the boy is cuter than he seemed. Davina turned around contentedly and threw over her shoulder, "I didn't expect you to be so caring." The teenager immediately glanced at her, and Davina added that she would drink his milk on the way. And thanks to her, the blood from the coloring book will be very useful to him. Here the heroine swallowed nervously. That damn smile, for some reason it seemed very familiar to her. The image of Queen Joanna immediately popped into my head. This can't be. "Hey you," suddenly came from behind her, causing her to freeze in the middle of the street. Was the Rainbow One really going to bother him with her presence any longer? The guy grimaced. "I'm leaving," the heroine said resentfully, "and yet he's a bastard. Nothing in